Hey,
Yes, go ahead. Everything's set.
all right, where are we at? 7:36. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Commission of the City of Danbury, July 25th, 2023. Let the record show we will begin with a roll call at 7:36. Commissioner Coelho is here.
Here.
Commissioner David.
Here.
Commissioner Fay. Where'd she go? Commissioner Fay, she's here. Commissioner Hawley.
Here.
Commissioner Hylinski. Did we lose Angie?
We may have.
Oh, we lost her. All right, we'll save her name. Commissioner Jowdy,
I'm here.
Commissioner Melillo,
Here.
Commissioner Rhea,
Here.
Commissioner Bennett,
Here.
Commissioner Duran, absent. Commissioner Mejia, absent. Commissioner Fay,
I'm here. Sorry, I was getting my food delivered.
that's all right. What do you got?
Gisella's.
Oh, nice. All right, so look, we'll start up here. Angie, keep an eye on her trying to log in.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Can you
She-
hear me?
yes.
Yes, Angie.
She's on with the telephone number 770-7712, Ms. Reed. Did you find her? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got 9 regular members and an alternate.
Yes, 9.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. The next regular meeting is scheduled for August 8th, 2023. Don't let me forget, we have to talk about that under other matters. We have an issue to talk about under other matters as it relates to the August 8th meeting. If we can, please stand. Everyone who has their flags, you're welcome to wave it as we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
One nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty and
and
justice for all.
all. Thank you very much. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve tonight. Did we
No,
ever?
you don't.
No,
You didn't- I
we
didn't
never
send
got
the other
link.
one. I
Yeah.
finished them this afternoon, but I didn't bother to
That's
send
all
them
right.
out.
Yeah,
So
we-
you just
we
have
never-
the 7-11.
We never got the link on June 27th, so we're gonna
Right,
talk about.
I just finished them, like I said today, so I didn't bother to send them out. So go ahead, just do the 7-11
good.
ones.
Commission members, everybody got their link and got their July 11th, 2023 minutes. Motion to accept. Commission members. Motion to accept the July 11th minutes. Commissioner Jowdy, thank you. Motion by Commissioner Jowdy. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner
Second.
Coyle. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Minutes are accepted. Let me read the instructions for tonight. This meeting of the Danbury Zoning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to participate in the meeting in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and the video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Please be aware that we may have to mute your microphone or telephone to avoid an echo or some other background noise. This is also being streamed via live YouTube. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website, and all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. As always, if you have any questions, please contact the City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department. As a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen in the City of Danbury website. We will follow the posted agenda as per standard practice. I'm sorry. If prior to the meeting, any questions or comments on agenda items are submitted via email to Sharon Calitro, these comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. Finally, please remember that technology glitches sometimes do occur. Please be patient if that happens. Also, sometimes when people read, they cough. Sorry. We have a public hearing this evening, but prior to that, I'm going to read the legal notice. Legal notice. Notice is hereby given to the zoning commission of the city of Danbury will hold a public hearing commencing at 7:30 PM on Tuesday, July 25th, 2023, in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom to consider the following matter. Petition of Black Wolf Properties LLC to amend section 6A2B12 and 6A5H 1 through 7 of the zoning regulations. In parentheses, add automobile, truck, and motorcycle repair with indoor parking facility and limited used automobile, truck, and motorcycle sales in the IL40 zone as a special exception use with additional use regulations. Copy of this application is on file in the town clerk's and the planning and zoning office for public inspection. Parties and interests and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard at this time. Agenda to be posted will include instructions on how to access the Zoom meeting and application materials and view the meeting in real time on YouTube. Theodore J. Haddad Jr. Chairman, posts on city website and town clerk's office on July 12th, 2023, published in the News Times on July 13th, 2023, and July 21st, 2023. Purchase order 2023-241. This agenda was filed in the town clerk's office on July 20th, 2023 at 3:58 PM. First petition this evening. Petition of Black Wolf Properties LLC to amend section 6A2B12 and 6A5H 1 through 7 of the zoning regulations, add automobile, truck, and motorcycle repair with the indoor parking facility and limited used automobile, truck, and motorcycle sales in the IL40 zone as a special exception use with additional use regulations. Let's see what we got here. So let me read in the 8.3B Westcog recommendation to Joanne Reed, planning assistant, from Kristen Floberg, senior planner, Friday, May 26, 2023 at 9:50 AM. Connecticut statutory referral to Westcog from Danbury attached zoning amendment. Thank you for submitting the attached referral to Westcog. The opinion of Westcog staff is that this proposal is of local interest with minimal intermunicipal impact. Therefore, it is not being forwarded to the adjacent municipalities, and the regional staff is making no comment. 8.3A Planning Commission recommendation, June 8th, 2023, to Theodore J. Haddad Jr. Chairman, Danbury Zoning Commission, from Arnold D. Finaldi Jr. Chairman, Danbury Planning Commission, regarding this petition. 8.3A referral of Black Wolf Properties. At the web-based Zoom meeting held on June 7th, June 7th, 2023, the City of Danbury Planning Commission voted to give the above referenced petition a positive recommendation for the following reasons. This complies with the Plan of Conservation and Development, POCD, because it supports the economic development of the area around the Danbury Municipal Airport, and the limitations placed on this use are an appropriate zoning control for this industrially zoned area. The motion to give this a positive recommendation was made by Mr. Sylvain, seconded by Mrs. Hofstadter, and passed unanimously by voice vote with 5 A's from Mr. Chioccio, Mrs. Hofstadter, Mr. Sylvain, Mr. Haas, and Chairman Finaldi. Ms. Calicio, would you please go over your staff report with us?
Sure. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Chairman. For the record, Sharon Calitro, I'm the Planning Director for the City of Danbury. So I submitted to you a staff report dated May 31st, 2023. Again, we received a petition from Attorney Marcus on behalf of Black Wolf Properties, or Black Wolf, I'm sorry, LLC, to add the regulations as noted as in the IL40 zoning district as a special exception use, which would be use number 12. Then we renumber the remaining uses with corresponding additional use regulations. And the reasons supporting the petitions were outlined in the letter from Attorney Marcus, notably that the Connecticut DMV has requested that Black Wolf LLC, who has a property on Myra Brook Road, they've asked them, and they hold a used cars license, dealer's license. They've asked them to, they have an automobile repair and a parking facility, and they've asked them to apply for a dealer's license from the state of Connecticut so that they can sell used automobiles from the facility that they have on Myra Brook Road, instead of selling them out of their New York State, under their New York State dealer's license, obviously out of state. So in terms of zoning, the repair of automobiles, trailers, trucks, and other equipment is permitted in the IL-40 zoning district. It's use number 25. A parking facility is also a permitted use in the district, which is use number 19. And the sale or rental of automobiles or trucks is a use that's allowed by special exception, which is that use number 12, but it's subject to additional use regulations. And under those additional use regulations, it requires, and I'll just jog your memory for a second, that the facility hold a new car dealer's license, and they be within a certain distance from an existing facility that sells car. And that allowed the corner property to develop, the corner of Sugar Hollow Road and Myra Brook Road to develop as the new Mercedes dealer. So that's allowed with specific use regulations. Black Wolf LLC desires to sell their used vehicles, although albeit they're custom vehicles, we all, I think, know that, and there are some classic vehicles there that it stores at that facility, but it's not a new car dealer. Hence, they've submitted a petition to allow them to sell under a used car, dealer license with limited sales. It combines the two existing uses, which is the automobile repair and the storage, with this limited sales component. And that sales component is treated the same as I just mentioned for the Mercedes dealer, which is under a special exception use category, which requires them to go to the Planning Commission. And those additional use regulations regulate things like minimum lot size, requires access from a collector or arterial road. They have to store indoors, and it also limits the number of sales. So we just, it's not a proliferation of sales. And again, I just gave you a little bit background on the K7 licenses from the state and how they're regulated. So a new car dealer can sell new cars, used cars, can be a general repair, can be a limited repair, can lease, and then I guess could manufacture. You can't go in the opposite direction. So if you get, again, it's hierarchical. In terms of the plan of conservation and development, the role of the POCD, as you know, is to guide the future actions of the city and provide guidance on how to make public decisions. We have to compete. We have to balance competing public and private interests and the demands for land, and amending the zoning regulations to regulate the land uses and their location within the city as deemed necessary by the commission is consistent with the role of this commission. We did a little research to figure out how many potential facilities this amendment would impact. And as of February of 2023, when we were doing some research and discussing this proposed amendment with Attorney Marcus, there were only 6 facilities in the IL-40 zone on sites 3 acres or more, which is the acreage requirement in this zone. And then if that number, so the universe potentially is 6, could be reduced if those sites didn't provide indoor storage or meet any of the other requirements. So the potential for this to expand to other IL-40 properties is somewhat limited. The used car sales in the CG is allowed in the CG20 and the CA80 zoning districts without any acreage requirement. So that's, I think, where the majority of our used car dealers are located. In terms of the economic development goal, the POCD, it does provide for the leveraging of our Danbury's unique assets to support economic development. And as you know, over the last several years, it's been a lot of car-related uses over on Myra Brook Road or surrounding the airport. And I think, in terms of limiting the potential for this use to expand throughout the city and or on Myrie Brook Road is somewhat limited. And so it's an appropriate control as proposed. In conclusion, we really didn't have a lot of comments relative to that. I was in discussions with Attorney Marcus. He'll explain it in more detail with you. The number of sales are limited. We put in enough controls. It's not like a regular used car dealer because the number of sales are limited, and B, the amounts on the sales are controlled, and we're going to get some certifications that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I think the controls are in place for this. It's kind of sort of a unique situation over there. And if you've seen Black Wolf, you have an idea of what's going on in that facility. So for those reasons, we didn't have any objection to the petition.
Thank you.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman,
Yes.
did you notice Olga joined us at 7:47?
Yep,
Yeah,
thank you very
I
much.
can see Olga as well.
Commissioner Mejia is here and is eligible for this, although we have a full body. Thank you, Ms. Calitro. Commission members, any questions of Ms. Calitro at this time? Anybody want to ask her how to spell archaical?
I can't even say it. I'm not sure I can say it.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Attorney Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Neil Marcus, Kona Wolf PC, on behalf of the applicant. And I read, obviously, Sharon's report, the planning director's report, previous to this meeting. But listening to her tonight, presented to you, reminds me that when I was a kid growing up in Danbury, we were the Hat City. I mean, we were the Hat City. And now, as an adult, we are basically becoming a car city. We have in the city of Danbury an enormous number of high-end automobile service companies, collectors. I mean, what goes on in this city today is really astounding because it's all kind of behind the scenes. You don't see a lot of it. And a lot of it is, as Sharon has pointed out, occurs at the Danbury Airport in the Myrie Brook district. And for those of you who are still trying to find mulch at Cooper Mulch and More down on Myrie Brook Road, you may be surprised to see North American Motor Cars, which is really a phenomenal building. When you consider it's really at the moment, it's a repair shop. It's a motor vehicle garage where they store and refurbish, as was indicated, very high-end collector automobiles. But that in hearing mention of the zoning that took place before this commission, which I was a part of, that allowed the Mercedes-Benz dealer to relocate to the corner of Myrie Brook in Sugar Hollow. Again, if you haven't driven by there lately to see what's taking shape, that is also a very impressive structure. So now when you're coming into Danbury from Route 7 South, one of the first things you see over to your left is a very high-end building selling high-end motor vehicles. And to me, that makes an impression of real progress in the city. And again, I'm going to start on Sharon's report backwards. In terms of the plan of conservation development, you couldn't ask for a better user of property and a better type of development than those that are going on right now over in Myrie Brook, because they set a tone of real progress, a city that is building in a positive way and moving forward. So what I'm here tonight to request is an amendment to the zoning regulations, which will resolve a very sticky issue right now with the Connecticut Department of Motor Vehicles. The facility, which is North American Motors, run by the applicant, which is the Black Wolf LLC. The facility is first class, and the Department of Motor Vehicles has absolutely no issue with it. The problem that they have is that when a vehicle is sold from that facility, it really has to be sold from the state of New York, where my clients are licensed and they can sell their high-end reconditioned vehicles. And the DMV in Connecticut really doesn't want that. They say, hey, listen, you're here, we're here, this is all taking place here. Why do we have to make the sales in the state of New York? And really the only reason for that is that the current zoning regulations don't allow them to take place at this location. And the DMV has asked my clients to correct this problem. And when they came to me, I said, we'd have to petition, as we have, to the city to amend the zoning regulations for this limited use. In reality, as the property is currently situated, nothing will change. It won't look any different from the outside, and what goes on the inside really won't be different. The difference is that in an office on Myrie Brook, paperwork will be exchanged, which right now has to actually be exchanged in the state of New York. That's virtually the difference of what we're looking to do. Now, I was hesitant to go to this commission and say, well, you should just allow motor vehicle sales in the IL-40 zone, because that does open a host of issues that I actually didn't want to address and didn't think needed to be addressed. So what we did, as the staff report has pointed out, is we crafted a very tight regulation that will address the situation that has been raised by the Connecticut DMV. It will allow North American Black Wolf to do their paperwork essentially and make their sales on Myrie Brook Road. Everything else that goes on there, the storage of vehicles, the reconditioning of vehicles, the display of vehicles, because in reality, that building is a small museum. And quite honestly, Chris Bishop, who's, for those of you who haven't met Chris, he's a guy who has embraced this community and has tried to do everything first class. And I think he's succeeding. But he'll invite almost anybody to come in, take a tour of that building. You can actually, if you call their phone line, you get their voicemail, you can punch a number to arrange a tour. They're very proud of what they've created there. So the actual restrictions that we've put in are straightforward in the regulation itself. And I'm going to get to that in 1 second. The petition limits the size of the building, it limits the number of sales, and it limits the type of vehicle that can be sold. It also precludes used car lots, or even a new car lot. It precludes car lots completely. So the conditions that we have asked to be attached, starting with number one, we'll go to 6A5H1. The sales of the used vehicles will require an automotive repair license and an indoor parking facility, a storage facility. So your average used car dealership, wherever it's located in Danbury, doesn't do that. This is unique to this type of facility. The 3-acre lot minimum makes sense. The vehicular access, of course, we always try to have industrial or commercial uses on collector or arterial streets, and that's what we've done. The vehicles will be stored indoors in the parking facility. We're not going to have, as I say, any type of car lot. no more than 10 vehicles per month shall be sold from the site. Again, this is a unique operation basically aimed to collectors and high-end purchasers. They're not trying to run a business that appeals across the board to everybody who's looking to buy an automobile. Their business is geared towards a particular market, and it's very limited. So 10 a month is what we're talking about. And we're not talking about low-end vehicles. We're talking about vehicles having a minimum sales price of $75,000. And if it's a motorcycle, it'll have a minimal sales price of $40,000. The motorcycles that are being built on this site are all custom. You're not going to find your standard, even high-end Harley Davidson or Indian. These are all custom built bikes, and they're high-end and they're expensive. The facility will be licensed, obviously, by the Connecticut Department of Motor Vehicles. That's the whole purpose of the application, so we can meet the licensing requirements. In number 8, the certificate of location approval will be required. I asked from the zoning commission because that is your current regulation, but a new public act has taken place as of earlier this month after the application was filed, and it's actually on your agenda tonight for a future public hearing. The state has changed the location certificates back to the CEO. Years ago, it was sort of optional. It was at one time ZBA authorization, then it went to the zoning commission, and then there was a choice for a while. But now the state has said that should be under the auspices of the CEO. So as you act on this application, I would ask you to scratch out from the zoning commission in 8 and put from the CEO. Pursuant to section 3E9D, that will be amended when you have your next hearing on the planning staff petition. But it will still be under the auspices of the Connecticut General Statutes, because the public act that has currently been passed revises section 14-54. So we're good on the references, except for we should take out zoning commission and make it the CEO. Again, number 9, we talked about no outdoor storage or display. Number 10, no signage. We're not going to say, put up flags saying used cars for sale. Number 11, only one repair facility with indoor parking, storage, and limited use vehicle sales shall be located on a single lot. So if you have 3 acres, you're not going to put 2 licensees on the same property. And then, of course, which Sharon referred to before, is number 12. There are teeth to the enforcement of this, because there are reporting requirements from as part of a grant of a special exception. And of course, there's a catch-all. All the other provisions of the regulations apply. So we think that we have put together a very tightly knit regulation that will accomplish what we've asked for without any unforeseen consequences. And again, as the staff report indicates, we've analyzed the potential sites, and they're very limited, and actually none of them have the indoor storage facility that would be required. So that's the application. I'm pleased that the Planning Commission has given not only a positive referral, but their commentary is really appropriate, that this is in line with economic development, which is the whole purpose of the new PCOD. This property is unique. It's amongst a small handful, as I say, of unique facilities, mostly on Myrie Brook, but it really, I'm hoping that the commission, in reviewing this, sees the very positive side of it, because it really it's something that, as I say, if you drive by Myrie Brook Road now and look at that building, you'd say, wow, who in their right mind would invest that type of money in a facility like that? And the answer is somebody who is really proud of the work that he does and his company does, and somebody who has an interest in this city, because quite honestly, there are a lot of other places that Chris Bishop could have looked to for developing his project. He himself is a local to the extent that he grew up in Wilton. I believe his wife was Richfield. And I've seen him in the community involved in a number of our civic and charitable events. He is first class, and that's why this operation that he's developed there is first class. And whatever we can do as a city or as a commission, you can do to support this proposal, I think is a step in the right direction. It's if I go on too long, I'm going to bore you with my compliments about this operation. But and if you haven't seen it, you really got to go look at it, because it's worth your time. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. But as I say, the staff report itself is extensive and complete, and I think it comes to the same conclusion that I came to when Chris first approached me and said, how can we satisfy the Connecticut DMV? Because we really like where we are and we like what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Marcus. Commission members, any questions of Attorney Marcus at this time?
I don't have a question, but I'd like to add something.
Commissioner Bennett.
Yeah, most of you know that I've been a car dealer in Danbury since 1988. And what the car dealers have done in the city, we're bringing new people in. People who never heard of Danbury, didn't know where Danbury was. Now you have a gentleman that's probably $100 million in a Mercedes store in Danbury. I invested a ton of money in a Maserati store in Danbury. Chris Bishop gave the city something that everybody wishes they had. They're car collectors, they're professional guys. They bring something to the table. But more importantly, they're going to bring, flying into Danbury Airport, some rich guys from California who want to buy a car. That's the plus for Chris, but it's going to bring that person into Danbury market. The move that Chris made, the move that the dealers are making in Danbury now are awesome. And I'm glad to be part of it. And I'm also glad to be on this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bennett. Commissioner Melillo.
Yeah, Attorney Marcus, I have two questions for you. First,
Yes.
I'm gonna ask you the first question before I forget it, because I don't have a piece of paper to write on. So you mentioned, and I knew it was coming because I've seen it on the agenda, the change from the zoning commission to the ZEO doing approvals. Just curious, and I don't know if maybe Sharon could be the one who would answer this too, but is that that legislative change, is that a complete turnover? Is it, or does it provide a municipality an option between the current agency or the ZEO?
Sharon, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
I'll attempt to, and you just tell me if we're on the same page. I would say it now requires the ZEO to be the only one who signs off on it.
Okay.
And let me tell you why, Bob. That in reality, I mean, you've seen these location certificates. There's not a lot of discretion in those, and there's not a lot of guidelines on what you apply in reviewing them. And they finally come to the conclusion that this is an administrative function of a land use department, and that's why they did it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that
agree.
one. I signed off numerous K7s during my 10 years or so as chair. You know, and a lot of them were administrative. I remember having a conversation with Mr. Haddad about it earlier on, because he was a little bit uncertain about I said, no, it's an administrative thing. We've been doing it ever since it, and it came into us. I remember Mr. Alpern telling me it was transferred over. But the only reason I asked was because it does waive a public hearing and allow it. And so it does give the option for a public hearing, and that's what my only concern, because we've taken a good amount of efforts over the years to protect the residents in the Mary Brook area, especially those who live on the opposite side of Mary Brook in all those residential neighborhoods. And that's why I'm wondering if the option was there, because let's face it, it's the IL-40 zone, and I know it's not the only IL-40 zone in Danbury, but if the opportunity was there to have that come before the zoning commission for a public hearing, I'm just wondering if that would help protect those. But if it's not if it's a complete changeover, then it doesn't make a difference.
Bob, again, it is a complete changeover, but this use will have a public hearing because it goes to the planning commission for a special exception. So there's no question that there's a public hearing. But once it goes through that, if the special exception is granted, at that point, the location certificate really it becomes perfunctory. There are no new issues for the location certificate.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with Attorney Marcus, and also add that a special exception, like special permit use, is a use that's been determined to be appropriate for that zone, potentially subject to some additional either requirements or a little bit more discretionary review, but basically have come to the conclusion that's a use that's appropriate for the zone. So once the planning commission, as Attorney Marcus indicated, would approve a special exception, it doesn't need to go back to now another commission to decide whether that location approval. Now the ZO says, yes, they've made a determination. Yes, it's approved there, and yes, it's allowed in that zone. That's what they're turning over to Sean on behalf of the city.
Okay, thank you. I am comfortable with the public hearing for the special exception, but I know every once in a while there was one where it was questionable whether or not we should have made them come in again, and that was what I was wondering on. But and which by the way is a nice segue into the second my second question. And when I was reading through this, I'll be honest, at first when I knew what the intention was, and I read "and limited used automobile, truck, and motorcycle sales." I was concerned by the word limited. I went on to read further, and I saw that we do define the limited. However, I also know as a school teacher, as well as a public official, and a member of this commission, that a lot of people don't read 3 words, let alone more than they have to. And so I'm wondering if the word limited is actually the best word there. Why wouldn't it say like high end or something along those lines, specifying what specific type of used automobile it was?
I'll try that one. I actually had in there high-end classic. We used a lot of language, and Sharon and I kicked this around that these words were somewhat undefined and a little vague, and they really probably don't belong in a zoning reg. I think limited, if you wanted to swap a word, you might say restricted sales, but it is limited by the fact that there's a number and a price and a method of selling and showing these cars. All those things being unconventional for used car dealers. So that's the limitations. And to me, it makes sense. But I share your thought that I've used a lot of different words, collector, custom, high end, I think I used at one point. I had a couple other thoughts at one point, but we ended up on this word because we thought it best describes what we're doing.
Yeah, I understand where limited comes into play, but because it's one of those words that's throughout our zoning regs, but it's also a word that has so many definitions to it. I'd hate for in all honesty, no offense, Attorney Marcus, but I'd hate for you to stand in front of us maybe 6 months from now saying this word limited applies to this other thing because a different client is hiring you to stand in front of us, and so I myself, and again, it's not a deal breaker, but I'm just wondering whether a more precise word would be better than just limited. But that's just my thought.
If you can think of it, you're a better man than the director and me.
But you know what you might want to consider? You might want to consider some examples of a high line in that statement of limited, such as, and put 3 examples of what it is, so it can always fall back to. That would be an easy thing to do.
Yeah, again, Bruce, on that one, as I say, sometimes less is better. Because
Oh, no,
the chair is shaking her head too.
I clearly understand it, but there's two things that I thought about. One is who's going to control the dollar amount? And how are you going to do that? On an invoice to DMV, an invoice to the city? How are you going to monitor the dollar amount?
Well, we have to report.
Then
the
with
sales.
that, then I said, well, okay, it's the same thing with the limited. So I kind of felt there was a little bit of a conflict there, but maybe I guess not. So
Again,
kind of
we have
different
to report the sales, and
To
we
who?
will give to Sean, to the CEO. We'll have to do a monthly report, and he can ask for backup as he sees necessary. So if he wants to actually see, a transfer document, we'll give it to him. I mean, basically, well, first of all, you more than anybody else on the commission knows who we're dealing with. If you ask him, he'll give you whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay.
In reality.
Yeah. All right. Well, go for it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commission members, questions of Attorney Marcus at this time? Commissioner Coelho.
I don't know if this is for Mrs. Calitro or for Attorney Marcus, but you had mentioned, and I know in Sharon's staff report, 6 other potential locations. Where were they?
I'll let
Give
you.
me one second. I have it. I have it right here. I just.
You got it at your fingertips. I don't.
I do. I had that page. Okay, so again, this is from the list I downloaded in February from the DMV. So 6 general repairs license on sites over 3 acres or more in the IL40 zone. TP Cycles and engineering, maybe 4 Finance Drive, McLaughlin, 85 Cross Street, Stonebridge Sports, 15 Great Pasture, Leo's Garage, 54 Myrie Brook, American Motors, which is the 32, and Danbury A LLC at 45A Myrie Brook. Those are the 6 properties.
Thank
that
you.
are over 3 acres in the IL40.
Gotcha.
Thank you. Commission members, any other questions of Attorney Marcus at this time? Commission members? Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Councilman Perkins, your hand up?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
evening.
Commissioner. I'll just make this real quick because I really can't add much more than Sharon said, Attorney Marcus, Bruce Bennett. I can't really add more than that. But just from the short interaction I did have with Chris Bishop, I can tell he's a benevolent kind of guy. From the grand opening that many of us were able to attend. I don't know if you guys were able to go to it, but that thing was something. He makes contributions over there to the Richfield Playhouse and things like that. We mentioned about destinations. We like that word here in Danbury. We have our mall. Now we have the automotive section out there in Myrie Brook. Hopefully one day soon we'll have a destination downtown. I always have to try to get that in there. But I do have a couple of questions. Will this be part of his existing building or structure, or would it be an add-on? Question number 1. We've also mentioned about the concern for test drives in that area. I doubt there will be much test driving on Myrie Brook. It's a tight road. It's got those sharp turns, a little on the bumpy side. But there may be other areas where guys might want to get in there and just put their foot on the gas pedal a little bit. So that's always been a concern of mine, and I'm sure for people in that area as well. So what about test driving? And the last thing I want to know is we mentioned monitoring the sales. Why is that important for us to monitor the sales? I think those are my 3 questions for now.
Okay, thank you, Councilman.
Chairman.
Attorney Marcus, if you could on your rebuttal, address
I'll
those
address.
issues, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you. Commission members, any questions of Councilman Perkins? Anything for him? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this position? I see the hand of Alan Smith. Would you like to speak, sir? There you
Yes, thank you very much. This may or may not be unusual for you, but I come to you as a concerned resident of Danbury with no affiliation to any of the businesses or the city commission. But when I first saw the petition for the amendment, it sort of piqued my interest, and there's several keywords that came, such as used car sales, motorcycle repair, truck repair and sales. And without, at that point, having understood what the details of the petition were, started poking around a little bit, and it took me several attempts to associate the address with North American Motor Cars. So now I know which business is being represented. Having looked at the specifications of the amendment and with respect to the special use regulations in particular, I feel quite comfortable that this is a reasonable amendment to push through. Some of my neighbors and other people in the area, I think, when they saw the possibility of changes to the IL 40 zoning, were concerned about businesses popping up willy-nilly, increased traffic on Myrie Brook, which we all travel. I live on Olympic Drive, which is just up from Myrie Brook, so we're right on top of the proposed changes. And they really hadn't explored the details too much. It was a legitimate concern on their part. We were wondering if we were going to see mom and pop repair shops opening up with used cars parked by the side of the road. Anyway, having looked at the documentation, spent a little time digging through it, I think that this is a very reasonable change to the zoning regulations. We've lived in Danbury now for over 30 years, and it's I'm very pleased to see some of the development, including North American Motor Cars, the Mercedes dealership going in. We have Glickenhaus down the road, SSTs on Myrie Brook and so forth. So I do think that this is a positive step in the development of this part of Danbury and also for this particular industry. But I just wanted to convey the concerns of some of my fellow residents here. And now I can, if asked, I'll be able to report back and say that I think that any of the changes proposed will not have any negative impact on the area in which we live. And in long term, it probably will have positive impact. As a essentially pro-business person, we always want to stimulate the tax base for the city. We want to see it grow. We want to see development of new companies coming in. So all in all, having looked at the details, I think this is a very good thing to push through. And I just wanted to provide that feedback to you folks. I know that you've done a lot of work. You're looking at all of the aspects of it. I just don't know if you hear from the man on the street very often. And for those of us who live over here, I see no negative impacts at all and probably some positive ones. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to convey that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Hearing from the man on the street. Thank you. Commission members, any questions of Mr. Smith at this time? Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Let me just go to the other page. I don't see any hands or I don't hear any voices. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Chianese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're very welcome.
Okay, Ben Chianese, 5 Briar Ridge Road. As you know, with the other, my objection is not necessarily to the applicant. While the proposal seems very noteworthy as far as restrictions and everything, but as always, my concern deals with Myrie Brook Road in general. To Attorney Marcus's comment that Myrie Brook Road is not an arterial road, it's still a local road. As the other speakers alerted to, a lot of the residents up on the hill, Olympic Drive, Spruce Mountain, everything, the concern has always been Myrie Brook Road and the number of traffic that has been seen over the years will have that road become. So my concern has always been every time you try to add a new use to the IL 40 zone, you just got to be conscious of the impacts of the local roads that it does impact. While this applicant has a lot of restrictions to its use, it's not necessarily to this applicant is the concerns. It's future applicants who take this amendment and with the good attorneys like Neil and Attorney Boucher can actually take this and expand it to further allow more development along that road. So those are my concerns that I just need to reiterate again, as I did in the past, to just keep these in mind as you add more uses to the zone. And I'm just going to read a paragraph from the staff report, where it basically says, amending the regulation as proposed opens the sales door slightly wider, but does not allow it to swing wide open. But it's still open, and it still needs to be at least looked at before making any additional uses to prevent something in the future. Because again, the road over the years, we've all seen it, the traffic just increases, and it's a windy road. So you really need to take those in consideration before you add any more new uses. And, those are just my objections. It was my objections before. And again, that's what I'm here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Commission members, any questions of Councilman Chianese? Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition?
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Rotello, please.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Paul Rotello, 13 Linden Place, Danbury. There's a couple of things to unpack here. The first thing is most of us have met Chris, great guy. I'm not as familiar with him as Neil is about his charitable works and things like that, but I'll accept that testimony. But this is not about Chris, it's about the zone, as Councilman Chianese pointed out. It's also about Myrie Brook, because there's apparently 2 other lots on Myrie Brook where this change could apply. And I just, for the record, want to state that used and new car sales of any volume at all are wholly inappropriate on that road. We all know that an accident of history brought us to this point. It was residential. It was on, airport on one side. It's kind of a sleepy airport on one side. And then a truck depot came in, and neighbors to the depot found that their residential values were under threat because they lived next to an industrial site, petitioned successfully for the zoning commission to expand the zone, and it kept expanding. And now we're adding changes to the expansion, IL-40, and we're adding uses and this and that. And we sometimes forget there are hundreds of people living directly above this strip, and they use that road. There's only one way out of that entire Spruce Mountain area unless they decide to hike to Ridgefield. And that's essentially to come down to Myrie Brook. There's a fire station on the road. And so, we come to this point where we've allowed industry on it. And I guess at this point, we want industry on it, but we have to be cognizant of the effect that it has on the neighborhood. And all of these businesses are essentially contiguous with a residential neighborhood. I agree with Councilman Bennett. The word limited is inappropriate in this aspect. I just looked it up. Boxcars are smaller than the word limited. It's meaningless. You really need to work on that word. I have been to North American Motors. I have a pretty good idea what they're doing there, at least walking around and looking at what they're doing, if that's what they want to continue doing. Clearly, this is not going to be a place where they're selling used Camrys. Their used cars are probably going to be like $500,000. And there's not going to be that big of a market for them that would lead to a lot of congestion on Myrie Brook. But still, again, this is not about Mr. Bishop. This is about what the regulations will allow in the IL-40 zone and the impact, because there are, at least as Director Calitro pointed out, 2 additional places on Myrie Brook where that could happen. So we need to exercise some caution on that. In addition, Attorney Marcus talked about the absence of advertising, and I'm not completely sure if, and this would be a question through the chair to staff, I'm not completely sure that's part of the petition, or that's just an agreement that Attorney Marcus has with his client that he won't be advertising. Because I mean, we don't want the wavy arm guy on Myrie Brook. We don't want the banners on Myrie Brook. We don't want the silver things that spin. We don't want all of the things that attract, that seem to go hand in hand with the car business. Nothing against the car business. Again, we're saying that half of the street is residential, and those kinds of things really don't belong there. They certainly belong somewhere. This is probably not that place. And again, we're watering down aisle 40 as just as general principle, not the greatest idea, but at least in this particular petition, as opposed to another one I guess we'll be talking about later on this evening, we're not turning a section of aisle 40 into residential development. This is still going to be a commercial development, which is much more appropriate in an aisle 40 zone than adding residential to it. So on that aspect, I'm ambivalent. I'm not completely in favor, but not directly opposed. But again, because of the nature of Myrie Brook and the sensitivity of those neighborhoods above it, it's mostly single family, 1 acre zoning, 2 acre zoning. We have to exercise as much caution as we possibly can when it comes to packing that street with this project and other projects that can follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rotello. Commission members, any questions of Councilman Rotello at this time? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Attorney Marcus, can I ask you to give your rebuttal, but also if you can, I think there was maybe five or six specific questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions that were asked. If you could just address those, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
I will. Again, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you again for the record, Neil Marcus. I'm going to start with Dwayne Perkins. His question was, if this zoning goes into effect, would North American use its existing structure or would it have to build a new building? The answer is it will use its existing structure because as a condition of the operation of or obtaining the license for the sales, there needs to be a storage facility, and that is the existing structure, both the storage facility and the repair facility, and that's what's there. So absolutely, it's intended to be the existing buildings for the use. Test driving was the second item that Dwayne Perkins raised. Again, I'm not sure if Bruce Bennett is correct and the customers are going to fly in on their private planes. I'm not sure how much test driving they're going to do. In reality, most of the people who buy collector cars don't really test drive them. They're buying them because of the specs, the years. They're buying it because they're vintage and they have a certain market. And basically, they're not really being purchased for street driving for the most part. I'll make an exception when you go look at Jim Glickenhaus's daily driver, which is one beautiful high-end Ferrari, but that's Jim Glickenhaus, and he's down the street. But so I don't think that Dwayne, there's going to be a lot of test driving. And in reality, if it's a high-end repair facility, a lot of these guys go out and test drive the cars that they work on. And they're doing that no matter where these facilities are in Danbury. So test driving in terms of showing a customer a car, or test driving in terms of a mechanic saying, well, now that I've done this, I want to make sure that the clutch actually gets me from first to sixth gear. They go out on the road. So I don't foresee that there'll be anything different from what occurs in that neighborhood now with all of the facilities that are doing this type of work. And the other one is monitoring sales. Why are we monitoring sales? Well, we're monitoring sales because the purpose of granting the special exception once the zoning is in place is to make sure that there are limited sales. We're not changing the nature of a business, which is a storage facility and a repair shop and a restoration and a bike building facility. Whatever these facilities are, we're not changing them to becoming used car lots or used car operations. This is accessory to what they're doing, which is servicing their collectors. And as I say, in reality, to get the sales in the state of Connecticut as opposed to the state of New York. That's what the DMV is looking at. When we switch over to Ben Chinesi's concerns, I'll say somewhat the same things. The facility that is there today has existed now for a number of years. I mean, it's new, but it's been in existence for a couple of years. And as the comments from the man on the street, Mr. Smith, who represents neighborhood issues, as his comment said, they kind of like these facilities. They think they're a positive economic growth, or they reflect positive economic growth. So the facility is already there, and any real traffic is already that this facility is generating is already occurring on Myrie Brook. And to our knowledge, we haven't had any complaints, no issues. And if you actually drive by the facility, which I do on a regular basis, because I've got a lot of reasons to be out in Myrie Brook, there's not a lot of traffic going in and out of the facility itself. It's a really low-end traffic user. So I'm not really that concerned, because we're not in this instance creating a new use. And for any future applicant for this type of special permit, they'd already have to have their storage facility and their maintenance garage. So it wouldn't be an entirely new use. And that sort of hopefully addresses Paul Vitella's comments too. We need to be cognizant of traffic issues in the neighborhood. And that's why we're making this a special exception use. If we weren't worried about issues like traffic and the need to have a traffic report if warranted, then we would make this a use as of right. But the fact of the matter is that if you've ever observed the Danbury Planning Commission, the traffic is always one of their concerns. And I'll compliment them. They go to great lengths to make sure that traffic issues are addressed. I mean, I've been involved in many applications in planning where our traffic engineer has set up computerized simulations of streets and a simulation of parking lots and driveways just to address to the nth degree whatever questions the Planning Commission has. So to the extent that we are making this a special exception use, I think we are being cognizant of traffic, not only in this neighborhood, but traffic generally. So I'm comfortable. I appreciate the questions because they're all appropriate based on what the proposal is before the commission. But I'm comfortable that we've given some thought to these in the way we have fabricated the language of the regulation itself. So I'm hoping that answers all three councilmen in their concerns. And it's interesting, quite honestly, the neighbor who you'd think would be worried about traffic didn't even mention it, but the councilmen did mention it, which is a kudo to the guys, to the quality of our council members, that they are actually out there, in this case, more concerned about traffic than the people who actually are going to be impacted by the traffic. And I think that's terrific. But I do think that we've addressed it by the way we structured the approval. And other than that, I appreciate, by the way, particularly Alan Smith's comments, because it's sometimes we don't get that type of analysis from the general public that he's put into his presentation this evening, and that's really appreciated. But other than that, on the question of whether we have to play with the word limited, I really don't think so. I mean, we had this discussion with Mr. Malillo earlier, and I think that the language that again we've put in there after having discussed it with staff is in fact appropriate. For one word, for better or for worse, we are developing a program that is very limited in terms of being used car sales. And that's the context in which the word limited has to be used. Limited as it pertains to the sale of used cars, both by the number, by the methodology, and by the value. The last thing I think I may have overlooked is the question that Paul Frutella raised on advertising prohibition. That's just not something that we've said, well, don't worry, we'll do it. It is actually number 10 in a condition of approval, no signage advertising the sale of used vehicles at the site shall be displayed on any structure or on the site itself. So we're not going to put a pylon sign on, we're not going to put a banner on the building, none of that. Now, that's no signage. I mean, obviously, if you go into the internet and you look up high-end collector vehicles in Danbury, you'll probably come across North American motor cars. But in terms of making this look like a used car lot, that's what we're talking about. So there will be advertising, but not in the nature of signage. And it's very specific. So I thank you again for your thoughts. If you have any other questions, I'll try to answer them, but the applicant can rest.
Thank you. Yes, I saw you did touch on all the questions. I was going to remind you about the advertising one, but you grabbed that one. Thank you. Commission members, any questions of Attorney Marcus before we wrap this up? Commissioner Puello, please. Unmute. There you go.
Sorry, the question I had was for Attorney Marcus, the hours of operation.
Right now, the operation is basically, it's just at 7 or 8 o'clock a.m. start, and they're usually closed up by about 6 o'clock. That's not to say that some people don't stay in the, it's when they're open to the public, it would be normal retail style operations. People work in the shop in all hours, because once you get involved in a project, you sometimes don't want to put your tools down at 5 o'clock and you'll work till midnight. It's kind of like my office. If I get involved on rare occasions, I'll just stay there and finish it.
I see the light on plenty of times
could
when I
probably
drive by
relate,
Deer Hill, so.
but generally they're running 9 to 5 modified hours, and they're there 6 days a week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anything else of Attorney Marcus, Commission members? Anything else of Attorney Marcus? Ms. Calitro, do you have anything you want to wrap up, add?
No, I would just say, to reiterate what Attorney Marcus said, I mean, I went back and forth with him about the terminology, and I am comfortable with the use of the word limited because it applies across the board, the number, the value, the reporting aspect of it, and limited means it just doesn't have broad application. So, and I think, that as part of this record is pretty clear.
Thank
So
you.
other than that, no, thank you.
Commission members, anything of Ms. Calitro? Commissioner Malillo?
Yes, Ms. Calitro, thank you for touching on the word limited. I was going to ask you two questions if you didn't speak. One was for you to just weigh in on that conversation. The second, though, is would it be possible, as you know, the rare instances where we have had some automobile related dealerships over on Myrie Brook Road, on just about every one of them, and I think even this particular property, we put it on the repairers, prohibiting test drives or of those like going up through the residential neighborhoods. Is there any way, if when this leaves our purview, if your office could include that in the recommendations to the planning commission regarding the special exception use to limit test drives to residential neighborhoods?
Yeah, I mean, again, the special exception requirement and findings that the commission has to make and the conditions that they have to, that they can attach thereto in order to make that would allow them to do that. So we can carry, the thoughts through. I know, and I've been involved with many those location approvals with you with those conditions on it. And yeah, we'll make a note in anything that comes through the department and through the, to the planning commission.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, the only other thing, honestly, the only thing you could do, on the floor, if you wanted to, would be to add another condition in there about not test driving on local roads. So this, again, this is on, and it might be an arterial, it could be a collector, in our regulation, how it's defined in our regulations, meaning they're not going up onto a Lidvick Drive and doing test drives. You could definitely add that as, no local roads as defined in the subdivision regulations, and then that would be pretty clear.
Yeah, I don't know if I would want to go that exhaustive citywide because we've been protective of one neighborhood. And so I think as long as we have a special exception aspect,
I think they're pretty cognizant of the impacts of traffic to the residential neighborhoods that surround, commercial and/or industrial land uses. So they're pretty cognizant of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commission members, Mr. Smith, man on the street, I see your hand. Unfortunately, we cannot read you in at this time. We've already gotten past that point. I'm dying to find out what you had to say though, but we just can't. But thank you for coming and thank you for sharing your information. Commission members, anything else of Attorney Marcus and Ms. Calitro at this time? If not, we're faced with looking at someone. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Coelho.
No problem. Just a quick question for Sharon, because I'm familiar with the area, Myrie Brook. I'm just thinking of the businesses, and I appreciate the people that have spoken up regarding traffic concerns. But some of the businesses that are on that road, that there's daycares that are there. I believe there's even the FedEx building is in the IL 40 zone, right? Which I think would generate far more trips than a potential 10 sales a month in cars. But yeah, I could be wrong, but I think those are some of the allowed businesses that are either currently there or could potentially go anywhere on that IL 40, correct?
Yes, any use that's allowed is permitted use or a special exception,
Correct.
From the planning commission can go on that roadway. Yeah.
Yeah. Just trying to gain some perspective on number of trips versus the small increase that 10 sales a month may generate. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Commission members, anything else? Commission members, we're looking to see if anybody wants to make a motion to close the public hearing or if anybody wants to make a motion to continue. Commissioner Melillo.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Commission members, there's a motion by Commissioner Melillo to close the public hearing with a second by Commissioner Coelho. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Not hearing any opposition or seeing any hands. This public hearing is closed. Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Haddad.
Yes, sir. Commissioner.
I would like to make a motion to move this item to number 2 under old business for discussion of possible action.
Thank you for that. Commission members, there's a motion second by made by Commissioner Melillo, second by Commissioner Coelho to move this to number 2 under old business for discussion of possible action. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Not hearing or seeing any opposition. Thank you, Commissioner Melillo. This is number 2 under old business for discussion of possible action. Okay, so we do have, let me move this. So we do have a continuation of a public hearing. It's a petition of Danbury Mall LLC, property owner Round One Entertainment tenant, 7 Bacchus Avenue, F17002, F16014, F16015, F17014, and F17015. For a special permit for cafe liquor license in the CG20 zone. So we got some documents. Ms. Calitro, refresh my memory. Did we keep this public hearing open for anything specific, or do we just keep this public hearing open?
No, we kept it open, specifically. Hold on, I have to get my.
We got it specifically for these items, but
Yes.
we'll only be discussing these items? Or did we, our general,
Yeah, okay, here's my notes. To receive the incident report and the house rules.
okay,
So those are the reasons, those, you can discuss any of those things associated with that,
Got
but
it.
you were specific as to the
Okay.
reasons for keeping it open.
got it. So with that said, we received, 3 documents, house rules, from the Round One, entertainment website. We also received incident report regarding disruptive guests. I don't know, 6 or 7 pages or so. And then we got a larger document, 16, 18 pages or so of incident reports regarding outside alcohol. These were requested by Commissioner Coelho. And I'm hoping the commission members had a chance to read these over, and let's throw these out for discussion. To be honest, I don't know what, they're all very, very informative. I don't know what we can gather from that besides what they said as it relates to those cities and states, but I'd like to hear what everyone has to say about this. Do you want to start us off, Commissioner Coelho, on your thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I got a little better feel for what was happening and based on their history and their body of work. And I think one of the things that concerned me a little bit that we maybe could talk to the applicant more about is security. And after reading some of the reports, obviously I saw some disturbing things in Baltimore and Philadelphia. Obviously, the city of Danbury is not Baltimore or Philadelphia. However, 1,200 people is still 1,200 people. So I'd like to hear, if we get to that point, perhaps a little bit more from the applicant about how they were going to address our concerns and concerns of, I believe, Commissioner David with regard to minimum number of security guards and perhaps a better plan. After reading some of the reports from some of their employees, I think there was some feedback, obviously not all bad, but security was something I think that we could probably narrow down a little bit more on and discuss it.
Thank you. I was hoping the same thing. I'm pretty sure, I don't read minds, but I'm pretty sure that the applicant got a sense of our concern on security. I think we discussed last time of having 1,200 people in a 61,000 square foot facility to rely on for mall security cops and a Danbury Police Department that may or may not be close to the area if an incident breaks out. We heard that the request for liquor represents only 5% of their sales. So someone can certainly question why bother, but they are, because it's a convenience to the people. I saw the house rules as it relates to people being underage and having to be accompanied by a guardian. But I'm hoping that we can have some conversation, but maybe the petitioner heard some of our concerns and have something different or something in addition to tell us tonight. I think one question that I asked about how many people were on staff at one time and how many of them had the word security on their back. That was answered. I wasn't particularly happy with that, but maybe they have some other ideas. But what else, commission members, does anyone have to say about what they read and what they're thinking?
Can I ask a question? Where is this? Is this in the mall?
This is in the mall.
Okay. Then I have just a question about local police. When I had my hockey team, zoning required me to have 4 paid policemen. That cost me a lot of money. I part of the game and I did it. And that was for 500 people.
Yep.
These guys are going to have no paid police. They're going to have security. It doesn't work.
Well, Councilman.
It doesn't work, but I've been through it.
Commissioner Bennett, we actually talked about the rink. I think the rink holds 2,000 or so. And
Yeah.
so you got 2,000 in a much smaller area. We have, 1,261,000 square feet. But when someone applies for liquor like this, we can discuss and we can condition security. So what you just raised and don't misinterpret what I'm saying, as an innocent question was very valid and very critical, because that's where we're at right now. And that's what we want to have as an exchange with the petitioner. So thank you for noticing and bringing that out. As I mentioned last time, I was on this commission when we approved the mall, and we talked about security. The mall, when they opened on day one, they had 4 restaurants with full liquor permits. And we had a conversation about security at that time as well. Thank you. Any commission members, anything else? Who wants to join in on this? Commissioner Rea, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Haddad. So I had a question, and I might have just missed it in the previous meetings or in the documentation circulated. But so this facility is going to be open past midnight, which, as far as memory serves me, is outside of the hours of the mall itself. And based on the layout, again, from memory, where is the exit outside of the mall for this facility? Or would you be exiting through the mall itself? Like, how do you get out to the parking lot from here?
I think that they talked about it last time, and I don't know the floor plan well because I don't go to the mall much. I think there's an outside exit and entrance without having to go in through the mall.
Mr. Haddad,
All of those stores have a staircase, the lower level staircase. This is where if you look out one door, you're looking at the fountain. But all of those stores that are on that level, the majors or the anchors, they have a staircase that leads right out into the parking lot. And that's what they discussed. And there wouldn't be any traffic going inside the mall after a certain hour. Commissioner Malillo.
yeah, they had said that they were going to also be building an exit that over by where LL Bean is that will exit to the parking lot on that side.
So Commissioner Rea, there is an exit to the outside from.
Got it.
There will be. There will be.
Yes.
Will be. Okay. And yeah, I guess that leads me to a follow-up question.
Sure.
So similar to a couple weeks ago, we had discussed the possible transition to Meeker's Hardware, and there, I brought up a concern of there being only a exit at the front door, and what if there was a fire? So wouldn't there need to be 2 exits in this case as well for potential like that? I mean, if you're having 1,200 people, you have 1 exit for everybody to funnel through.
Well, I would think that they wouldn't expect traffic, or they wouldn't allow traffic to go into the mall after the mall closes, but there would certainly be an emergency way to exit. But that's something I mean, the fire marshal in the city of Danbury gets involved in, the building department, things like that. I don't have a set of prints in front of me, but there are some certain things we hand off to other commissions, and there are other things that I hate handing off to other commissions, but this is one of them that is going to be scrutinized by another agency.
Okay.
Anything else, commission members, at this time? I'm going to ask Attorney Pease if he has anything to present on the documents. I'm sure he has things to talk about.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Hylinski has.
Yeah, Attorney Pease, 1 second. I just noticed Commissioner Hylinski's hand. I'm sorry. Commissioner Hylinski, please. Oh, unmute, please. There you go. Nope. Do it again. There you go.
I did read the reports from the other places. Some pretty tough people around here, around Maryland and Massachusetts. But my question is, I guess, to Christine.
Okay.
When I read the report, towards the bottom, it said something to the effect of, what could we have done better? How could we have handled the situation better? And even the people who wrote the report, they might have been security people, I'm not sure, but even their response seemed to indicate security wasn't very good. And there were a lot of improvements that they could do in different ways that they could have and should have handled it regarding security. That gives me a bad taste in my mouth.
Well, I commend them for asking their on-site people, but you're right. It's if the on-site person has a different set of eyes and can come up with some great ideas for the corporation, and the corporation doesn't heed their advice, it's meaningless, I suppose. But let's hear what Attorney Pease has to say. Unless, Commissioner Jowdy?
Yes, there was a well-known music venue / nightclub on Ive Street years ago. And on a given night, 6 or 7 bouncers were present. And also at the end of the night, 2 policemen, one of them that was hired is outside. So I don't see how they could have such a limited amount of staff to take care of 1,200 people.
Thank you. Anything else, commission members? Anything else, commission members, at this time? Attorney Pease, you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. As we closed our hearing 2 weeks ago, the incident reports were requested, and my client pulled those together and at my direction had them focused on issues of alcohol incidents or unruly guest behavior. And there were 3, I believe, alcohol-related incidents, and there were 6 that were related to unruly guest behavior. From, in our initial review or in pulling these incident reports together, our concern, or what we were looking at and what I was looking at, was to the extent that any of those were related to the sale of alcohol on the premise. And, none of those were related to either the sale or service of alcohol by Round 1 to any of its patrons or guests. The alcohol incidents concerned either patrons or guests bringing alcohol into the premise or being intoxicated and being asked to leave. And the unruly guest behavior, was, again, it was unrelated to, alcohol sales. We certainly have, heard, the commission's concerns, at our last hearing regarding security, number of security, and, how we address, I guess the fear is the wrong word, but the concern over what could happen on the premise given the size of the premise and the overall capacity. We have, again, joining me this evening are Steve Takeuchi and Cindy Kinjo from Round 1, and they're going to be able to also, jump in at any point and deal or address operational questions that the commission may have or public may have, and as it relates to security. And we are certainly open and amenable to discussing with the commission the concerns regarding security and what might be appropriate and what might demonstrate a commitment on the Round 1 corporate group to make sure they have a safe premise for the their family entertainment venue and satisfy both the commission and concerned citizens in Danbury. So, I will make sure that, we will address those and with answer any questions you have, relative to that. So I will also defer to, like I said, Cindy Kinjo and Steve Takeuchi, that they can jump in and start to address or, the issues of security.
Thank you.
Okay. Cindy?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Good
you, Mike.
evening, Commissioner. Good evening, everyone. Thanks
Good
for
evening.
having us. I just want to make note for the record that I have here with myself and Stephen Takeuchi, our Director of Loss Prevention, Matthew Strawn. And he will also be able to further discuss any, or I guess, address any questions about security. Also about the incident reports. He and his team were the ones who were able to pull those up for us. The records are they span across a year, and there were over 3,000 reports, close to 4,000 reports. And out of all of those reports that we pulled, there were only 9 incidents related to alcohol and also unruly patrons. And again, if you have any questions specific to security, Matthew would be able to answer them in more detail.
I'd like to first address the concern or the question by Mr. Raya in terms of escape routes. We have a fully, we're about to, we received word that we're about to receive our building permit, and through that process, the fire marshal and the building department will review our egress plans, and I believe we have about 3 or 4 emergency egresses out of our space on top of the main exit that we have. So hopefully that will be what you were looking for.
Those are outside of the building to the street, call it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. That answers Commissioner Raya's questions. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Matthew Strawn. I'm the Director of Loss Prevention for Round 1. I do handle all security guard contracts. I handle surveillance systems. We handle all of the incident reporting and addressing those concerns. So I've heard a lot of concerns about security and how that's being handled. And I want to assure you that security is of utmost importance to us. We do have various contracts for various locations, and it's all dependent on demographic, customer base, crime rates, all the types of things that tend to occur in any given community is how we determine the number of hours and the type of security that we have. We have a wide range of different types of security. We have standard guards for the less volatile locations, for which we have much fewer hours. And I think, I'm not sure what data you have regarding the number of guards that we have present. I'm not sure where you got that data. Can I inquire as to where that data came from?
You're referring to what?
I heard.
In the previous hearing where we would have at any given time 2 guards, a security guard.
Okay, so the number of guards on any given day, generally we have 1 guard at the door, minimum, sometimes 2, 1 guard on the floor, sometimes 2. We can have up to 4 or 5, depending on the situation per location. We may even have off-duty officers for that location or armed services at that location, again, depending on whatever the research tells us is needed for that area. The ones you were looking at, I believe you were looking at Philadelphia, Towson. Philadelphia does have armed services, so we had regular security guards, and we had at that location on weekdays, I want to say we have 3 guards at one time from about 4 o'clock in the afternoon until closing. On weekends, we have 5 guards. And again, that's from 4 p.m. until closing, plus at least 1 off-duty officer. Despite that, I'm not sure how familiar anybody is with what's going on downtown Philly. Despite that, there's still lots of conflict there, which regardless of what we do, it can't be 100% prevented. The best case scenario we do in centers like that is to mitigate to the best of our ability and have good response times and good corrective actions when things do occur. We cannot prevent them in a lot of cases. The best we can do is keep all of our customers safe and feeling like they're coming to a safe environment. Again, off-duty officers of the last resort, we don't like to have those because they tend to be a deterrent for families. But when they're required, and that's always on the table as a potential option. But again, I don't have enough data for Danbury at the moment to tell you what our plans are specifically for this site. But that's not too hard to get to, and that's something that I can put together on relatively short notice.
So you say the presence of off-duty policemen is a deterrent to families?
In some locations, when you see officers or patrol cars sitting outside of a business, generally families in particular, they're going to look at that and they're not going to want to bring their kids there because they're like, well, why do they need them? So not saying that it's a complete no, we just don't like to go there first off. Unless, of course, like I said, the research shows that that's the best choice in the best case scenario.
So let me, I don't know what everybody else is thinking after your statement or presentation, but when I hear the words, we have one security guard at the door, maybe another, we have one on the floor, maybe another, this commission can't, I don't think this commission wants to hear maybes. This commission wants to know that there's going to be X amount here and not so that there's going to be incidents and then you shift gears and change your policy 6 months from now because there are incidents. I mean, I understand this is brand new and you really have to feel your way through this, but we would probably prefer your day one to be overkill and then drop back after that if it's not needed, rather than be understaffed and then say, oh boy, we're going to have to beef this thing up here, but some damage has been done. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And I apologize if I was misconstrued. We do that. And like I said, I just haven't done the research on this site yet to know exactly what's going to be needed. So I was giving a broad view of depending on location, severity as to what's needed. We do schedule more. We do over the top at first. So I always have more hours that are needed when we first open a location. And when I said maybe more than one, that again, I was going dependent on location because it varies from one site to the next.
Right.
And so initially we do go overkill by about 40 to 50 hours per week on our contracts. And then depending on how those things go, we can scale back or we can increase, but we tend to go 20 to 30% more than what we believe we'll need. We don't start with off-duty officer and we don't start with armed security unless it is absolutely recommended by the local community, especially the mall services. So we will start by discussing with the mall and even local law enforcement to determine what the areas like and what they recommend is needed at opening. And if their recommendation is such that we should be starting with off-duty officers, by all means, that's where we will go. But we tend not to go there at first, because as I said, historically speaking, from my own experience with my own family, my own kids, and I see a location that has police officers parked out front on the weekends, that's not gonna be my first choice to bring my children, if that makes sense.
No, I understand. If I was driving by a freestanding building and always saw police cars there, I agree with, and I had a family, I agree with you. I wouldn't go there either. But it's the mall. So if there's going to be a bunch of police cars parked out, nobody's going to know that it's for your facility or for any of the other facilities at the mall. That's just my thought on that. But I see a couple commission members have some questions. I think Commissioner Malillo, and then we're going to go to Commissioner Coelho. Commissioner Malillo.
Sure, I have a couple questions. I want to start with picking up where you left off. About how long would you said it, you could do this relatively quickly, but how long would it take for you to formalize a plan for the layout with the Danbury Mall?
I just need to finish my research on demographics and crime rates, which I'm getting off of different websites throughout the internet. I also need to reach out to mall security, so that should take a couple days. I could have it by Monday of next week for certain.
Okay, so it's something that you could definitely do, like, because we meet every 2 weeks, or roughly we meet on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. So it's something that could be done by our next meeting.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, easy.
Okay. So my second question, and I want to put some of these in perspective, because I'll be honest, I understand where you're coming from when you say certain people, a off-duty police officer. What you said, an off-duty police officer, it's a special duty. You know, here they're on duty, they're just not. It's like overtime hours in Danbury. Are a deterrent. I know some communities and some even demographics, it is, and in others it's not. So I do understand where you're coming from with that. So my question is twofold. The other facilities that you're referencing, are they freestanding facilities, or are they attached to a mall like the Danbury venue is? And also, what is the size capacity of those two facilities in relationship to the capacity that we're looking at here in Danbury?
Absolutely, that's a really good question. Off-duty officers would be, obviously, as you mentioned, ones that are on overtime, so they work their full shifts. And so we usually contract with the city first, and give the city the first opportunity to offer those services if they have them available, but they don't always. So we do have independent companies that pull from other regions or districts. So that's generally how that works. There's also some security guard companies that offer armed services that will be a good stand-in for off-duty officers. And we've had really great success with those in those locations. As for the capacity has to do with, what's the square footage of this one? 56. So this is not one of our average. Okay, 56,000 is average. This is about an average sized round one. This is not one of our larger ones. This is not one of our smaller ones. It's average. So we generally have at peak. Did you get the numbers on peak? Okay, peak traffic. Peak traffic is not even going to be close to 1,200. We would assume that it would probably get in the first 2 to 3 weeks. Generally, it gets pretty busy. And again, as you mentioned, we will be amping up our security and such during those first 3 to 6 months, in all honesty. But peak capacity is never reached. I've never seen it happen at any of our 52 locations in the 12 years that we've been open. So we've never gotten to the point where we had to keep people out. And so we've had no issues with actually having enough coverage to make sure that people are staying safe. I did hear some references earlier or questions regarding the incident reports. And I wanted to let you know that, as Cindy mentioned, those were just some ones that we pulled out that seemed to meet the criteria of what you were asking for. The security guards and companies are an ongoing process, just like you would do with any employee or trainee. Sometimes you don't get proper attendance, sometimes you don't get the proper responses, and that's why we have these open communications with not only our local locations, but myself and the guard leadership and the heads of those guard companies to make sure that we are constantly in communication for improving processes and improving performance. I don't believe that you did receive it in the past, but since security has become a large topic here, I do have detailed post orders, if anybody's familiar with what post orders are, which outline the specific duties and expectations of each guard and what their jobs would be, which would probably answer a lot of your questions as to where the guards would be and what they would be doing, because I have that all detailed out in a 7 to 8 page post orders. I also have a list of duties, it's checklists, and so on and so forth. And I could give you some example schedules of guards. I think that would address a lot of these questions regarding the guard coverage.
That would be useful. And would that also tell us, I guess you would say, can a security guard get physical? Can a security guard get physical with an unruly guest if they have to? So, I mean, would those, what you're going to provide to us, would those job descriptions specify what part of your staff can get involved physically and what part of your staff cannot get involved physically, and if an incident were to occur?
Simple answer to that question is no staff can get involved physically with an unruly guest.
No
That is
staff.
not allowed.
That's
So,
fine. So,
If,
but as far
if
as the
that was
guards go-
required, they will require law enforcement, yes.
okay. So, and the guards would have no problem getting physical with someone if they had to. But none
In
of-
rare cases where that's absolutely necessary, absolutely. But I want to point out that there's almost, oh my God, I could count on less than, 3 hands how many times we've needed to be physical with guests in order to detain them or to handle them. So if it gets to that point, it gets escalated to that point, law enforcement is involved. We don't go there.
I think the issue of having one person or 2 people getting in a fight, or one person getting upset with a game, or I don't even want to say drinking too much, it doesn't matter. Those things happen. I think being part of a mall and seeing and hearing groups of people, 5, 10, 15, 20 of them just running through the mall or whatever, that I think I would be concerned if there was an outbreak of 15, 20, 30 people in a brawl, not just one person that has to be held down. You know what I'm saying? So that's an issue. And
I do completely understand that. And like I said, those incidents, an incident of the level and severity you're describing, I've not heard of. There's only been one case that I can actually recall where we've had a brawl or some sort of large incident of that nature. And that was in North Riverside in Chicago. And that's a rough area.
Yeah.
And, again, law enforcement was called in. And so I've never had anything happen. And from the little research I've done on Danbury, I just don't see that as that type of community where that would be a major factor.
Got it. And I'm sure I'm sure you did a lot of work on the area. So I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm sorry if I interrupted. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Oh, by the way, that information that you're volunteering for us would be very useful. So that's appreciated.
Absolutely. Just I'll talk to Stephen and Cindy as to how to get that to you, and I can provide that immediately after.
That's great.
Yeah, just one.
Commissioner
The other
Malone.
thing I did just so we can put into perspective. You said so our location will be about an average size location. The two locations that were mentioned that had the most concerning incident reports associated with them, are they also average size? Are they larger or smaller?
The ones in question are both.
Allison and Billy, I want to say those are, yeah, they're about average in size, but I would say the locations for those, like I said, downtown Philadelphia is an extreme environment, to say the least. It's only gotten worse over time, and if it were up to me, I would have never put one in downtown Philadelphia. Really hard to control anything going on there. Towson has been historically also a little bit rough, so those have been more challenging environments. Again, I really don't equate Danbury with either of those or these extreme locations. I think square footage is just a way to determine kind of our baseline, and then I base guard needs on all the other mitigating factors on top of that.
Yep. Thank you, because I think it's helpful for us to take in mind the demographics too, because even though it may be a community, there are different parts of different communities that have different personas and reputations in other parts of communities, and it's helpful for us to be aware of that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
How long? Thank you, Commissioner Malone. How long have you had that facility in Philadelphia?
3 years, 2.5.
And have you seen it over time getting worse over the 3 years to a point where you said?
In the last year and a half, I'm not sure how familiar people are with what's going on in Philadelphia, but just downtown Philadelphia alone has deteriorated. And that has nothing to do with us being present or anything that we have control of. It's just the city itself and the community and just the energy and the angst and anger of that community has just gotten really bad.
I know,
So,
I know that
yeah.
area. I know that area.
Yeah.
It's gotten, I owned this in the 80s, I owned a city block right over by there, about 4 miles from there, that I'm glad I don't own now, because
Yes.
it's just gotten,
Yeah, it's pretty rough. If we had a way out of that lease, I would take it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Trust me.
That was going to be my next question. The other
Yeah.
facility also, how long were you in that other facility? Were there that other average one that you had mentioned that was trouble?
Towson.
Yeah.
Towson, that is 2.5. I want to say it's about the same amount of time. It might be 4. Is it? Yeah, I think it was.
They're actually back to back. Towson, Baltimore County was 2019, December 7th opening, and Philadelphia and Fashion District, that one was 2019, December 21st. So just about 2 weeks apart in opening.
Yeah, interesting. And they both declined over time.
Well, Towson is not even near as bad as Philadelphia. So if that was my perception, I apologize for that. Towson is rough, but we have done a lot of progress there. It started out a lot rougher than it is now. So we've changed guard companies at least once. We changed guard companies once. We've had to up guards. We attempted to increase the guard presence with the first company, but we were just getting unreliable service with them. And we changed to a more reliable company. And we've had great performance from them and great response. And the local management team has also had some turnover, which makes a huge difference in how the guard manages themselves. So we've made a lot of progress in Towson, especially in the last 6 months.
Very, very challenging. Thank you. Commissioner Jowdy.
What percentage, I don't know, this question might have been asked, what percentage of liquor sales are your sales?
For it just overall. Yeah, for just any location, and just as an average for all of our locations, liquor sales is typically about 5 to 10% of our overall sales.
It's a really small proportion. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very small portion in comparison to our main portion of business, which is the arcade.
Right. Well, one of the concerns that I have is the idea of bringing in underage with liquor. Would you ever consider doing a location without liquor? Since it's so small?
Depending on the location and depending on, again, what the cities or local authorities, sometimes we do open locations starting with only beer and wine licenses versus a full hard liquor or full service liquor license. That doesn't change the fact that we've opened all of our stores with an alcohol license. It just depends on the level of the alcohol, I suppose. Do we consider opening a store and keeping a store open without liquor? Probably not. That's most of the time, that's something that we discuss prior to going into building into a location or occupying a space.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jowdy. Thank you, Ms. Kinjo. Anything else, commission members, right now?
So I guess I'm sorry.
Commissioner Coelho, then we'll go to Commissioner Bennett. Commissioner Coelho?
Yeah, I think one thing that we also got to talk about, and I appreciate Commissioner Jowdy said, because I do remember that very successful bar that was somewhere on Ives Street. And I think just the presence of the police at the end of the night, peace through strength kind of a thing, right? It would keep the crowd in line. And I think some of the people, the citizens that were part of the public hearing earlier, as well as us, I think commission members, we got to think about if that's going to be the place. There's not a lot of bars in Danbury like there was, say, 30 years ago that would stay open till 1 o'clock in the morning. And it sounded like, round one was geared to staying open later than anything surrounding it, which means you're going to kind of get people to just kind of congregate to there as the last place of the evening. And I think the potential at the end of the night would only be, would be beneficial for everybody, including round one, if they would seriously consider putting on overtime police officers, whether they're plain clothes, full uniformed. I think the uniform presence at the end of the night probably has a better effect and will keep things a lot calmer and accidents from happening. But I think that's something that the applicant needs to consider, because although they may want to speak to the mall security team, and I've got nothing against that in the mall. I think it's a great place. And like I said, I wish them this round one much success, but you have to take into consideration there's not a place, maybe one other place that stays open that late. That's nowhere near this size. So it's just something we need to consider besides the other issues I think that, Commissioner Jowdy brought up with regard to underage, et cetera. But I think something at the end of the night, we've all been part of this long enough and we're all adults. That's when the problems happen. And I think if you're just preemptive and you can have the overtime police officers there, it would go a long way. At that point in the night, you're not scaring away families. You're just preserving safety for everybody. So just a thought.
Thank you very much, and I do appreciate that input. I want to point out that we are open to that, and we always are at every location. Again, it's going to be, we'll come to those determinations finally as far as when I submit that data to you, what we believe based on our research is going to be most beneficial for everyone involved. Again, that's going to be in conjunction not only with yourselves, but also with local law enforcement and of course, mall and their operations team and their security team to determine what their recommendations are, because they have a better understanding of the environment and the customer base and kind of what the energy is for the area around there than we do, since we are from outside. But we will definitely address that, and it's always on the table. It's always a possibility. It's never off the table, just to be clear.
Appreciate that. City of Danbury has been voted one of the top 100 cities in the United States. So like you, we want to keep it that way. And I'm sure you'll be a good, be cooperative to making that happen.
Thank you. Commissioner Bennett.
Well, I was just going to touch on what Mike just said, and that's, we are a wonderful city, a very safe city. We have a lot of great policemen, and we don't want to jeopardize that at all. So my question then is, what's your clientele average age? Are you a 21-year-old guy, a 30-year-old guy? Who do you market to?
So I can answer that question. So typically when we open at 10 a.m. up to 2 p.m., we typically have the older crowd coming for casual bowling most of the time. And then around 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., middle school, high school, school-age kids will pretty much the main family will be at our store. And from 6 p.m. and onwards, it'll be the younger adult crowd. So our age actually varies based on the time you're seeking. So that's the rough breakdown.
Okay. Then my fear at night is not the crowd that goes into a facility like yours, but it's the crowd that mingles outside, and that's where the problem starts. So I would be all in favor to support what Mike had said, that we need paid, paid police officers in a squad car, the same thing that happens at the ice arena. And since that took place, there's no more trouble. You have a police car outside with 2 patrolmen in it, and that's where the problem stops. So we're not Philadelphia. Thank God I wouldn't live there. I love Danbury, and I want to keep Danbury to be a safe city. I want to go to the mall. I don't want to worry about the mall. So that's why my question was, are you looking for teenage kids or 20-year-old kids? And I think he answered that question. That's what I'll have.
Thank you. Commission members, anything else?
I just want to reemphasize what Mike said. I just want to reemphasize it. Second, with what Bruce and Mike said. That's all. I've also read reviews of other round one facilities around the country. And I urge some of you people to do that too.
I'm sorry, say the last thing again.
I read a number of reviews of round ones around the country.
Right.
Okay, so I urge you guys to do that too.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Commission members. Anything else at this time? So we'll go back to Attorney Pease. Did you have anything anything else you want to? So we're going to be waiting for some documents, I guess.
Yes, I believe that we will be able to produce a demographic, my words, a demographic study of Danbury to be able to lay out what the security levels would be needed based on that study, as well as the post orders, which are the security guard, I guess, manual of conduct and what's expected, duties and obligations for serving in that role, which we can provide for the next commission hearing. The only other thing I want to reiterate is, as previously, to address the issue of minors in a bar or a cafe in which alcohol is served. If you recall, there is no wait service. Alcohol is served or sold at the bar. There is obviously guests are ID'd. Guest IDs are also scanned, and a bracelet or band identification process is in place. So the round one staff takes all opportunity and precautions and does not serve and sell alcohol to minors based on their ID process and their identification of patrons that are eligible to purchase alcohol.
Thank you. Commission members, anything of Attorney Pease at this time?
Mr. Haddad?
Commissioner Melillo?
I don't know if it's needed or not, but it might be helpful just to be proactive. If that plan could maybe provide two things: one, what your daily plan would be, but also just give it an idea of what your initial opening 3-week plan, which obviously we know would be much heavier than your daily plan, but just so we can maybe have an idea. I can anticipate a question maybe at the next public hearing coming up along those lines, and I just want to give not that I'm going to do it, I probably won't, but just it might be helpful just to be proactive rather than reactive on that one.
Sorry, are we talking about the scheduled guards, number of guards scheduled?
Yeah, your security plan, like what you're based on the demographics and the study as to what you would recommend on your day-to-day,
Oh, for sure.
regular functional operational function, but also as you anticipated, you'd have a heavier presence in the first couple of weeks, just because it's a new facility and you're going to expect to be busier than maybe you would earlier on. So just maybe so we can have an idea as to what the plan would be for the anticipated larger crowd in the beginning versus the average long-term plan.
Right, and I want to clarify, our initial plan is generally for the first 3 to 6 months, not just the first 3 weeks. So
Okay.
we have an escalated number of guards and escalated labor hours for the first 3 to 6 months. It takes about that long for us to come out of that honeymoon period and kind of drop down, and for us to make a better judgment as to what is actually needed. Yeah.
Okay, that's even better than 3 weeks. So
Absolutely, understood. We take it serious.
Thank you. Anything else, commission members, at this time? So we're going to be waiting for information. I mean, are we going to go around on anything else tonight, or just make a motion to close?
Mr. Haddad, this is a public hearing.
Yeah, I mean,
even though it was open for this contingency, we did ask that it was received in advance so it could be publicized. Yeah. Being a public hearing, I think we still need to go through the speaking in favor and speaking against.
Yeah, but it's got to be only to the subject matter. Right, there you go.
Yeah, so but only pertaining to the subject matter that we had continued it contingent upon.
Got it. So we're going to do that. So not hearing any other questions of the petitioner at this point in time, I'm going to ask, is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition at this time? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition?
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Rotello, yes.
Thank you. For the record again, Paul Rotello, 13 Linden Place, Danbury, City Council, and a representative of the 6th Ward where the mall is and this potential project would be located. Yeah, a couple of things just on background. And by the way, why are we dissing Philadelphia? Philly's a great town. I mean, Haven't been there in 40 years. Okay, fine, but it's a lovely town. Maybe things have changed. I appreciate the fact that Danbury's reputation for low crime is well-deserved and finally is actually getting out there into the community. However, we are not immune to violent incidents. As a matter of fact, not only is Danbury not immune, but the mall is not immune. There have been incidents in the mall area that have led to the hospitalization at entertainment events of members of our police force. These things can happen. A couple of years ago, there was a traveling circus, I believe it was called Weston Shows, and they had a violent incident on I believe it was an opening night. This is in the mall parking lot. That led to a lot of problems. And then it happened again a year later, and Councilman Shinesi and I tried to discuss these issues with the GM of Western Shows, try to get to the bottom of that, and eventually the company stopped coming to Danbury. But that happened right in the mall's parking lot. Commissioner Bennett had mentioned, Commissioner Haddad, when you and I were on the zoning commission together, we approved the liquor permit for the hockey rink. It had nothing to do with security. It was just a straight permit. And then obviously when they started doing events there, the police got involved. This is a very normal thing in Danbury. I've been involved in outdoor events in Danbury for years. And at some of them in that area, in the mall area, we were told how many police we had to hire in venues that were 10 times bigger than than this particular building proposal of 60,000 feet. We had venues that were 300,000 square feet. And we were told how many police we had to have, and we didn't have any alcohol. And there was no negotiation. It was a tremendous ding to the bottom line. I mean, the police are expensive. And we didn't think that they were necessary, but we had no choice. There's a councilman, I don't know if he's still on here tonight, there was a councilman that was doing a downtown event and basically had to shut it down because the police forced him to hire so many officers he couldn't afford to put the show on. He wasn't serving alcohol, it was just an outdoor event. I find it a little surprising, predictably similar when I read these reports, that they start out with an obnoxious, maybe someone fueled by alcohol, maybe somebody not, but an obnoxious, anxious patron, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then the police were called. I'm not comfortable with people who ostensibly are hired by round one, employees of round one, who are sort of staff and kind of in charge of the security, who are not allowed to touch patrons. There's really not much you can do with obnoxiously drunk patrons except get them out of the venue. And if you can't touch them, you have to call the police. The idea that we would, with our eyes open, allow a company to come in that has these issues, and well, I guess I only got like a half a dozen of them, or 7 or 8. I heard earlier somebody mentioned from the company that there were 3,000 or 4,000, but only several of these had to do with alcohol. I'd just love to see a pie chart to see the percentage of what some of the other ones were. 22% of the people freaked out because they thought somebody stole their phone. Another 15% freaked out because they thought the machine ate their quarters or something like that, that are essentially resolved internally. I'm sure there's a lot of drama that goes on in some of these arcade areas that don't lead to the police being called. But still, once a mall gets a reputation, we know this is the second mall in Danbury. The first one failed because of this very reason. Some of us remember that mall in downtown Danbury. Once a mall gets a reputation for violence and danger, it is next to impossible to undo that reputation. I was talking to a famous artist in northern Danbury who moved to New Fairfield and then sent his kids to NYU. And when his kids were there, they bumped into some friends from Ridgefield. also going to NYU, also in the same dorm, and they were comparing notes. Oh, wow, you're from Danbury? Yeah, we're from Danbury. Where are you guys from? Richfield. Wow. Oh, you're from Richfield. That's so cool. Yeah, you're from Danbury. That's so cool. And the Richfield kids said, did your parents let you go to the mall? Because our parents would never let us go to the mall because it was too dangerous. This is the Danbury Fair Mall, which I think is one of the most vanilla malls on the planet. By design, we want to keep it that way. So, again, let me just reiterate that because the liquor permit seems to be such a small portion of the business, and because it looks to me as if the zoning commission is moving in a direction where the requirements for security would probably outweigh the profit margin on the alcohol, maybe it's just a thought, the petitioner should withdraw the petition, open round one up. I will be one of the first customers to go in there. I looked at their menu today, and I can't wait to go, but maybe withdraw the petition, operate for 6 months or a year, get a feel for the city. We'll get a feel for round one and then come back with another request. I think this may be a little premature. They just don't seem ready to be able to deal with events that we know predictably will happen with areas that are being served alcohol. They don't seem to be able to handle those events without having to call our police. So really, either you put a couple of police on staff, and they'll be happy to do that. We keep hiring more and more police. We're now fully staffed, but we will be in a couple of months when they get out of the academy. We'll be up to 166 officers. We'll be able to satisfy those requests. But again, they're expensive, and you do that, and it may make the alcohol sales not worthwhile. But something doesn't quite fit together here. I get it. They're a business. They're coming to Danbury. It's great that they're going to be here. People are going to have a lot of fun. But there's some problems here that I'm just not comfortable with. I'm not on the zoning commission. It's going to be up to you guys to make this decision. But I do represent the neighborhoods around the mall. And I can tell you that if there's a spillover, if there's activities going on in the parking lot, it's just going to be another reason not to do in-person shopping and to stick to online stuff. And that's really the last direction that we would like to see Danbury going. So please, take as much care and as much time as you possibly can with it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So Councilman Rotello.
Yes, sir.
Let me throw something back at you. Okay, so let's just suppose that there's a commission member here that's not worried about alcohol, but's worried about 56 to 60,000 square feet of people with 12 square feet of space with 1,200 people in it, and alcohol is not the issue. So if we did what you suggested and said, let them open up without alcohol, then this commission would have no right to give any condition on security. Since they are looking for alcohol, we have the right to condition security. So why would in my opinion, that's an advantage to this commission in protecting the city by upping their standard security to maybe something we feel is a more secure environment by more people. If they were not coming in for liquor, then we would know nothing about their security, their staff, or what they're going to be doing and what they're not going to be doing. Because they're looking for liquor, we're here talking about staff and security. So that's, in my opinion, I don't see people going to this place after they were just somewhere else and last call took place. They say, let's go over to round one for a couple drinks. Nobody's going to leave where they are and go to round one for a couple drinks. So I don't think that there's going to be I don't think drunk people are going to be a problem there. I think a lot of people in that space is going to be a problem there. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, but you're almost saying that it would be better to sell cigarettes so we can, regulate the sale of oxygen down the road. It's many of us on this Zoom call have experience with events that did not serve alcohol, where the police required us to provide security, not only our own internal security, but required us to hire them. And you mentioned that you're not comfortable ceding some of your authority to another department. But this may be one of those situations where if they didn't serve alcohol and yet still had security problems, the police would step in, because this is what they do, and require them to satisfy the police's demands. They're not going to come there every 3 hours and just let it slide. After the 7th or 8th time they're called, they're going to sit down with management and say, listen, you guys are going to have to do something. Here's a couple of recommendations, up to and including hiring us. It's outside the purview of the zoning commission, but really we're talking about law enforcement here. We're not necessarily talking about something that the zoning commission would normally be involved in. Yes, because it's alcohol, and yes, in this one narrow instance, you can do contract zoning for alcohol. It gives you some teeth. My position on that is that the danger might be too high to the trade-off might not work in the balance. I would prefer to leave the law enforcement to the people who enforce the law, and leave the zoning to the people who enforce zoning. So all I'm saying is that, yes, you're right. If you deny a liquor permission, a permit request, or you extract an agreement where it's tabled for a certain amount of time, 6 months, whatever it happens to be, you lose the ability to add a couple of more security guards. From what I'm looking at here, I am not confident that if you told them they needed to hire 2 or 3 more guys that they have in their system, that would solve the problem. I'm looking at these reports and I'm seeing people who are essentially paralyzed when a potentially violent event occurs, and all they're left to do, it's a great example of corporate communication on how to reduce a messy, confusing event to something that reads well on a piece of paper. What happened? How did it happen? What can we do to make it better? It looks great, but if you just read between the lines, something happened. We weren't prepared to deal with it, regardless of how many people were there. We should have more people at the door in one of the instances. In the other instance, there were too many people on the door. We needed more people inside. I'm not confident that if the zoning commission did a contract, you have to have more security. The security that this company is providing, its own internal security, would solve the problem. I think in these instances, in these other communities, it was up to law enforcement. That makes me uncomfortable. So, my advice, take it for what it's worth, is just to have them back down on the liquor request, operate in Danbury for a couple of months, see how it goes, get a feel for the community, and go from there. That's all.
Thank you. Commission members, anything of Councilman Rotello at this time? Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone? Councilman Perkins, your hand up? There you
Yes,
go.
Mr. Commissioner. Thank you. Dwayne Perkins, 22 Main Street, member of the Danbury City Council. So you guys are working over Chicago, Philly. My daughter graduated from Loyola Chicago School of Law. Now she's a Philadelphia lawyer. So not living too far away from the downtown area, by the way. Mr. Commissioner, something was mentioned about armed security guards. I'm not sure if it was clarified yet, but it almost sounded at the beginning like there may have been a opportunity to bring in individuals, kind of an armed security firm that would be outside of our local police department. I would like some clarification on that through the chair, because in my opinion, I think that if we were bringing people in there considered armed security, we would like to, at least I would like to have the local police department. Probably another more important thing than that, the attorney mentioned, in his words, a demographic review. That seems to me like it should have been something that would be presented here tonight. I mean, that's what we're here for. So that's a little untimely, again, in my opinion, because to just conduct a thorough investigation of the environment, the Danbury environment. That should have been part of our discussion tonight, because that also is the basis, the foundation of future security plans going forward. And the last thing, maybe we should look into restricting the hours of operation to kind of bring them down a little bit, because some of the commissioners and some of the individuals who spoke already mentioned that usually when you're the last bar, people tend to congregate. That's when all the problems start. So maybe a consideration would be to limit the long-term hours of operation and close the place down and not have that be one of the last bars. Even though Tommy's place over there stays open pretty late, this shouldn't be open as long as that. It probably should be closed down a little bit earlier than that bar. I think those are my concerns, Mr. Commissioner and Commissioners.
Thank you. I'm sure Attorney Pease will answer that. But their hours were Monday through Thursday till 1, Sunday till 1, and Friday and Saturday till 2.
Right. That's late. That Friday, in my opinion.
Well, we're at 10 o'clock and it's already 2 hours past my bedtime. So 2 o'clock is real late. Anything else? Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Attorney Pease, I know we're going to keep the public hearing open with waiting for some other issues for people to be able to talk about and for us to see. So did you want to address any of the comments that you heard tonight on?
Obviously the demographic review, my words, will be provided. That will be one of the pieces of information we'll provide. And as it relates to hours of sale, the hours that I advised regarding the operation was just based on what Connecticut statute provides and allows for the sale of alcohol in Connecticut for a cafe permit, restaurant permit as well. So
exactly. So can I go back to was it Matthew Strong? I think. Did you want to address that issue when you talked about armed police? Was that I'm trying to remember Councilman Perkins' question. The armed police, was that a separate armed police private company, or were you talking about just having our Danbury police there?
So when I brought up armed services, that's always an option. And I just wanted to be clear that we have explored many different options. I never meant to imply that was something that we were looking at for this location. So we have done armed services as well as off-duty officers in conjunction with standard security, or just all armed services, or just all standard security. So there's a wide range of options on the table that are available depending on what our findings are, absolutely, and based on the recommendation.
Sounds that way. Thank you so much for that. Commission members, anything else? Ms. Calitro, did you want to have anything to say before we look to continue this public hearing?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman. Just actually, the only thing I wanted to say is that to get to August 8th would be using 29 of the 35 days. So you're still within the time period for the public hearing to continue.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about days. Okay, good.
29.
All right. So that changes our what we were going to talk about under other matters. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will have an August 8th meeting. Okay. Anything else, commission members? I would look for a motion here to continue the public hearing. Is a motion to continue the public hearing from anyone? We're going to need one. Commissioner Jotty, motion to continue the public hearing pending receipt of the documents we discussed. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hylinski. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Malone, yes, please.
Under discussion, I want to clarify, Mr. Jowdy hopefully can clarify this for me, that the documents that we asked for are related to the security plans for the round one petition.
You could add that, Commissioner Malone, that's fine.
Just to make sure we
your motion.
Yeah, just to make sure we clearly specify the scope of the public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you. The second still in place, Commissioner Helinski, thank you. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed? No opposition, no hands. So we are continuing this public hearing.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All the members of your team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Under old business for discussion of possible action, petition of Bright Ravens is Danbury LLC to amend sections 5B2A, 5B4, and 8C4F of the zoning regulations, add hotel conversion as permitted use with specific use requirements to the CA80 zone and add parking calculation to the off-street parking table. Let's see, this goes over. here.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Reed.
so I sent Mr. Raya the video links and the documents, so I'm assuming he needs to confirm whether he did watch it or not, as well as Mr. Jowdy and Mrs. Hylinski needed to watch one of the meetings, so they need to confirm that before we start this discussion. Mr. Bennett isn't eligible.
Okay, so let's start. Commissioner Jowdy, eligible for this? You read the documents and you listened to and you watched the video?
I watched the video and I feel I'm eligible to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hylinski?
Yes, I watched the video also.
Thank you. And I'm looking for Commissioner Rea. Commissioner Rea, I see you here.
Yes, sir. I watched the video and read the minutes and the notes, and I believe I am eligible.
Thank you. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's good. That's Ms. Reed, that's going to give us our full 9. Okay. So we have our full body here. If you recall, the planning commission was negative on that. Okay. Commission members, who wants to start off on any conversation or discussion on this? This public hearing is under the possible action and discussion for this evening.
What's that?
Commission members.
I think it's Ted's background noise that we're hearing. I'm not sure what it is, but his one is turning green when it came on.
Okay.
Mine was I'm here. Okay. Commission member, is that inside here?
It's quiet now.
Yeah,
Okay.
quiet now, so go ahead.
Okay. Commission members, who wants to pick up motion on this? So for purposes of discussion, a motion either way for purposes of discussion, commission members, the 9 regulars.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner David, yes.
Yes. At this point, I would move to deny based on the negative recommendation by the planning commission. I feel it's detrimental to the health, welfare, and safety of the community.
Commission members, there's a motion by Commissioner David to deny this petition. Is there a second? Commission members, is there a second to the motion? Commission members, is there a second?
I'll second the motion, Mr. Haddad.
There's a second by Commissioner Melillo. Any discussion? Any discussion on the motion to deny this petition?
Mr. Haddad.
Yeah, I like that.
Commissioner Melillo.
Yeah, I would like to, I feel as though a lot of times when we make a motion to deny or we vote to deny something, we should give a reason, sometimes personally. And I want to say that, right now, I apologize, my camp radio just went off. I think this is an intriguing idea. I'm concerned, however, what the introduction to a large number of residential units, especially when they're added to residential units that have already been approved for the area, will do to the existing infrastructure on Mill Plain Road. And so while it's intriguing, I'm apprehensive to introduce residential into the CA80 zone because we have tried to protect that. And right now, I'm not sure the infrastructure would fully be able to handle that large of an influx of residential traffic in that community.
Thank you, Commissioner Malillo. Any other discussion, commission members? Commissioner Coelho.
Yeah, not sure I totally agree with first two comments, in all due respect, Rob. I'd like to understand how you feel the infrastructure would be overloaded. It was in a hotel that could probably have just as many, if not more trips daily there. And I don't quite understand how you think, and also Commissioner Milan, I'd like to hear why you think it's detrimental to the safety and health. If it was a hotel that was fully occupied, which isn't, as opposed to the hackerspace, which would be in there, I think is great for the city. I'm trying to understand what the concerns would be in health and safety side of it. Because I remember listening, I believe it was only going to be one other location, and Sharon Calitro, if she could confirm, that would be affected by this. It was the other, I think maybe the place going out towards New York, if it's a Marriott Garden Inn or something. But all of the hotels on Mill Plain would be safe. They would be precluded from this change. But I'd like to have, I think, a little bit more discussion on it, because, you know, we haven't talked about it in the last, 2-3 meetings, because we haven't had enough people here for it. So I think we should have some more discussion about it before we just make a decision.
Mr. Haddad?
Commissioner Malillo.
Through you to
Thank you,
Commissioner Coelho.
Commissioner Malillo.
Through you to Commissioner Coelho to respond to his questioning on that. First off, you had asked about the difference between a hotel and the residential units. It's been my experience when I've traveled, most of my especially most of my travel to a hotel is not during peak traffic hours. First and foremost, and secondly, a lot of times, the hotel traffic gets back onto the interstate. You travel in, you stay over, you get back on the interstate. There may be some local people staying, but I would say the bulk of it are people, potentially passing through. And so therefore, it's more of an interstate traffic, where this would be more directly on Mill Plain Road, which I will admit, it's been about a year and a half since I've dealt with Mill Plain Road during the peak travel times. But 2 years ago, it was a parking lot, and that's before something happens on 84. Let an accident occur on 84 and it becomes gridlock. And so, the state has talked for years that they need to do improvements, widening Mill Plain Road. They gave us a study years ago saying they were going to do it, and they haven't. That Mill Plain Road corridor is just not conducive to the existing traffic there right now. We already know that once the PND zone in the summit comes up and operational, that's going to add further residential traffic, going to Carluzzi's, just heading down towards the mall and other places on Mill Plain Road. And I just don't think right now that corridor can handle adding an additional 300 residential units in addition to the units that have been already prepared. Like I said, it's an interesting perspective, and I'm not saying I'm opposed to the idea. It's separate from the hackerspace. The hackerspace is operational. That's not before us. What's before us is introducing a residential use and residential units into a very busy commercial zone, and that's what my fear is. I'm just afraid that it's not conducive to handling that traffic flow.
I can appreciate that, Rob, but if the Crown Plaza Hotel was operational like it used to be, when they would have a lot of breakfast, I would go there for a breakfast or dinner event. That was in the morning. That was no different than what they have at the rush hour at Amber Room. So I don't know if I totally agree with that, because whether the building is vacant or not, the potential for that to have the same amount of traffic flowing there from apartments or a hotel room. And it's not just a hotel room. they have events there. We've been there for plenty of events over the last 20 or 30 years. And that was morning rush hour traffic as well. So that was worse than 100 and I don't know how many apartments. I forgot what it was, that it would be. But
yeah,
I don't disagree with you about Mill Plain Road 100%. I wish the state would have did something 10 years ago. They're the ones that are always behind schedule. That not much has changed on Mill Plain in spite of all the development that's taken place over the last 15 years up at the reserve. So
yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I would just remind us too that I believe the plan also called for some food establishment, restaurant establishments. So there could still be some events like what you referenced going on in addition to the increased residential traffic. And again, I'm just concerned. And I don't need to argue. I respectfully, I respect your opinion. I know you respect my opinion, and so I'm just putting it out there. Like I said, I think I'm not opposed to the idea, right? I'm just not sure we're quite ready for it yet.
Thank you, both commission members. I'd like to hear from someone else. Anyone else?
You ready for me?
But Commissioner David, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Well, I disagree. Mike, respectfully, I disagree with you. There's a nightmare going down, up and down between Rivington to Ant Hat, back and forth, especially when there's a problem on 84. I respectfully disagree. You're going to have maybe studios that cost $1,800 a month. You could have 4 professionals in there like they do in New York City. So I disagree with that. The potential is probably more.
Thank you, Commissioner Coelho.
yeah, no, I think you might have hinted at like life safety. So that's what I was trying to understand. If it's a traffic concern, I guess I don't know that I disagree with that.
Safety, I almost got nailed myself going down that road a couple weeks ago. It's like a Russian roulette going to the intersection down by where the cannabis place is.
Thank you. Commission members, who else wants to join in on this? Commission members, further comment? Commissioner Hawley, I see your hand. Please go.
Yeah, so I think adding hotel conversion as a permitted use in this area or in the CA80 zone, I think it would be a crucial legislative measure to actually address some affordability issues in town. Looking through the POCD plan, only 4% of our housing stock is studio. If we have a one-stop effort to actually address that in one building by making this a permitted use in that area, I think that can seriously change a lot of the affordability aspects of the housing crisis our area is facing. So I think this is a clever way to address that issue within the confines of it only being applicable to this one location and then maybe another location. So the city has been wanting to get creative uses with our housing development. And one of the creative uses that was part of a bigger statewide plan was adding accessory units as of right. And our city opted out of that. And now we have another creative use coming our way, and we're not going to be entertaining it because it's going to add a few more traffic cars on an already busy road. That's going to always be busy if we approve this project or not. I think we need to balance the affordability of the area into this conversation and balance that well with the traffic. So that's kind of where my head's going at, because people my age, we're not able to afford to live here. We're moving up to New Milford. We're moving up to Hartford and other areas that are more affordable than Danbury. And that's going to come to a breaking point in the future. And I think clever development strategies such as this are a crucial way to stem that and actually innovate our city and keep people here. So those are just my opinions on that. And I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Any new comments? Anyone else, new or old? As far as I like to give my opinion last, but I'd like to hear if nobody else is going to have any comments, I'll go. Anything else? Commissioner Fay, Rhea, Jowdy, anybody? Commissioner Hylinski?
Chairman Haddad, I'm going to echo on what Commissioner Hawley says. There are limited affordable units for younger individuals that are coming into the area, and if we want to increase the population of younger individuals, workforce individuals. I think this project is, needed.
Thank you very much. That was Commissioner Rea. Anybody else? Commission members? All right, I guess I'll go. Go ahead.
I have one other comment. Maybe I'm too, I have one other comment.
Go ahead, Commissioner David.
Maybe I'm too old school, but I consider 1,800 for a 400 square foot or less studio apartment not very affordable. Thank you.
Through the chair, those numbers are inaccurate. Permit was put into the public hearing. The market rate for these were between $1,300 and $1,400 for the studio units. I think Commissioner Milan was referring to the one-bedroom units that will be also possibly be occupying the place. So I just want to put that on the record.
Right. Thank you. Commission members, anything else? I like the concept. I like that there'll be less units. I love the concept, and also that there'll be less units than the apartment units. I think that hotels, motels that are lacking in business have to come up with some creative ways. And a unit is a unit. If it's a rental unit for under a hotel or converted into an apartment house, I think it works. And I don't want anybody that's watching this, members of the public, to feel that if this petition gets denied, that it's also chopping off hackerspace at the knees. Hackerspace can do whatever they want. It was nice to hear from them. It was nice to get participation, but this is not about hackerspace. And I'm glad that our discussion this evening didn't center around that either. Back to my concept on this. I like the concept, but I have to support the motion tonight because I don't like a couple of the other issues. I don't like the issue of the lack of the open space requirement. I know that there were tennis courts there. I know that there was land. I did the multiplication or the calculation of how much space would be needed for open space. I don't think that it's detrimental to the developer to offer that up to the city or to offer that up to that project. I know that the hackerspace lease for $1 is a wonderful gesture, but in doing so, it's not allowing any of the units to go under the affordable statute, which would have been nice if the developer can throw a few. And I don't like spending the developer's money, don't get me wrong, but to give to the city a couple of units or several units that would have been under the affordable statute, that might have gone a long way as well. So my issues of not having any set aside specific affordable units and not having the open space requirement here is my concern. So anybody else have any other comments? Okay, so there's a motion to deny with a second. And I guess a yes is to deny. Everybody on the same page? So we're going to go with Commissioner David.
Yes to deny.
Commissioner Hylinski. Commissioner Hylinski, please put your mic on. So a yes is to deny, a no is against the motion. Almost.
I have a new computer.
That's all right. That's okay. Don't worry about it. So a yes to deny.
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Coelho.
No.
Commissioner Fay.
I'd also like to abstain.
Commissioner Hawley.
No.
Commissioner Jowdy. Commissioner Jowdy. Commissioner Jowdy. you're on mute. We'll go back to Commissioner Jowdy. Commissioner Malillo,
Yes, deny.
Commissioner Rea,
I'm going to vote against the motion.
so you're voting no. Commissioner
Correct.
Jowdy,
No.
I will vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Is that correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 yes.
4 no's. No, 4 yeses and 3 no's.
No, I have it the other way around.
Nope, nope.
Three,
No.
three yeses and
Sorry. That's what I
Three
missed.
yeses,
I have
4
sorry, I
no's,
two
2
abstentions.
Yes, correct.
Yeses, 4 no's, 2 abstentions.
Correct.
Well, this is a mess.
Motion fails, Mr.
In any
Haddad.
event, the motion is denied.
No, the motion fails.
The motion
The
failed.
motion fails.
Right, right. So they need to do something else.
Right.
So, Mr. Haddad, at this time, you would need to have a motion, either we would need to table it or we would do a motion to approve with reasons, which with 7 votes would be approved.
I'm looking at the 2 abstentions here. For the next, well, you could say the abstentions were because of the motion and not necessarily because of their preference. So yes, I'm trying to read into the future here a little bit on the next round.
Okay.
So yes, we would either need a table to a motion to table or a motion to approve with reasons.
Excuse me, Ted, Chairman Haddad.
Commissioner Coelho.
I want just a history on this. I believe since the planning didn't give it a favorable review, nor in Sharon's report, that they needed 6 of the 9 to get approval to begin with, correct?
That's correct.
If it went down that road. Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
So if someone was to make a motion to approve with reasons, it would need 6. Commissioner Hawley. Commissioner Hawley, you raised your hand.
Yep, I motion to approve with the following reasons. It's in line with the plan of conservation and development, and it will not negatively impact the public health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Danbury. And the second reason that this would be a way to address the affordable housing crisis our region is plagued with.
Motion made by Commissioner Hawley with reasons as stated. Is there a second? Commission members, is there a second to that motion with reasons?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Coelho.
Mr. Haddad,
Discussion. Commissioner
So-
Malone.
before we get to discussion, I just wanted to recognize that Commissioner Mejia, I think, was a little bit confused. I heard her saying, she didn't get a chance to vote. And so I just wanted to make sure that we all realize that we have 9 regular members voting. So therefore, no alternates were seated for the vote. And that would explain why Commissioner Mejia, even though was present, did not.
I didn't even hear her. I'm sorry. Commissioner Mejia, I didn't hear your comment, but Commissioner Malillo, did you hear what he said? We have a full body this evening, so no alternates are voting on this.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I didn't even.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I didn't even hear the comment. Thank you, Commissioner Malillo. Discussion. There's a motion to approve with reasons in a second. Commission members, discussion.
Pages 87, 88, and 90 are the pages with the reasons on the POCD plan that are in reference to meeting of the housing goals of the city. So there's I just want to put those 3 pages on the record of the POCD that this is in line with.
Could you repeat that, Ryan? Pages
Yeah,
80.
I'm just giving the pages of the POCD 87, 88, and 90.
Okay, thank you.
2022 POCD plan titled Innovate, ironically, which is something we have the opportunity to do tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawley. Any other discussion? Any other discussion, commission members? A yes is to approve the petition. A no is a vote against the motion to approve. Commissioner Hawley,
I vote yes.
Commissioner Coelho,
Yes.
Mr. David,
No.
Commissioner Hylinski,
Yes.
Commissioner Jowdy, Commissioner Jowdy,
Yes.
Commissioner Malillo,
No.
Commissioner Rea,
Yes.
Commissioner Fay,
No.
who's left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I got everybody. I vote no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 yes, 4 no.
Correct.
That's what I have.
You got it?
Yes.
This needed 6,
Okay.
so it did not pass.
Correct. Excuse me, Chairman Haddad?
Who is that? Commissioner Coelho?
Yeah. Just I wanted to appreciate, I wanted to say I appreciate what you had to say about the open space and the affordable issue with regard to maybe if the developer had made it more deed restricted and takes that into consideration, doesn't preclude them from coming back to us.
I think the developer, in my opinion, got information from us tonight as to if they choose to submit another petition that
Correct.
would be substantially different enough that it would be able to be accepted, and they may want to try it. They may want to try it again. In some cases, if they submit a similar petition, they'd have to wait a year, or unless it was approved or unless it was denied without prejudice or with prejudice. But so yes, to answer your question, I think if the petitioner came in with an open space requirement or some type of affordable, that this commission would accept their petition for public hearing. Is that what you were asking?
Yes. Yep. I think I'm in agreement with that. So
Thank you. Number 2, under old business for discussion and possible action. Petition of Black Wolf Properties LLC to amend section 6A2B12 and 6A5H 1 through 7 of the zoning regulations, add automobile, truck, and motorcycle repair with indoor parking facility and limited use automobile, truck, and motorcycle sales in IL40 zone as a special exception use with additional use regulations. Public hearing was opened on July 25th, 2023, and closed on July 25th, 2023. Commission members, what's your pleasure on
excuse me, Chairman Haddad?
Black Wolf? Yes, Commissioner Coelho.
I'd like to make a motion to approve based on the limited potential for a significant number of existing repairs with indoor parking facilities to convert to use that includes limited sales. And also the sales are limited in number and must be a minimum value.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Jowdy. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Haddad.
Commissioner Malillo.
I think we should also note that it complies with the plan of conservation and development.
Motion maker, Commissioner Coelho, would you take?
Yes, I'll accept that amendment. Thank you, Rob.
Commissioner Jowdy, you want to keep that second in place with the new additions of the amended to the.
I will as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Thank you, Commissioner Malillo. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? A yes is yes, a no is no. Commissioner Coelho.
Yes.
Commissioner Jowdy.
Yes.
Commissioner David.
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley.
Yes.
Commissioner Hylinski.
Yes.
Commissioner Malillo.
Yes.
Commissioner Rea.
Yes.
Commissioner Fay.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-0. This is petition is approved. We have no new business. No correspondence. Let me just jump to for reference only, petition of the city of Danbury. Petition of the city of Danbury by Sharon B. Calitro, planning director, to amend sections 3E, 9D, and 10A1A of the zoning regulations, change of issuing authority for certificate of location approval for motor vehicle dealers and repairs licenses from zoning commission to zoning enforcement officer. Public hearing scheduled for August 22nd, 2023. We refer that out, right? So.
Yes,
We already did. We already did
that.
last
We
meeting.
did that last
Oh,
meeting.
geez. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, it's for reference only. I told you it's past 8 o'clock, my bedtime. So I want to jump over now to other matters. We had other matters we wanted to talk about. But I guess we don't have to. We're going to have a meeting on August 8th.
Right.
It looked like we were not going to have a meeting on August 8th because I thought we were going to take care of all business tonight. But we are going to have business on August 8th. So we're going to have a new petition. Also, we're carrying over Danbury Mall LLC. Ms. Calitro, anything else?
No, that's
That's it,
the
right?
mall. The mall is a new application. You'll see that next time.
The other new application mall. Okay. Any other
Mr.
matters?
Chairman, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman,
Yes.
I did get a special permit application in yesterday. I just have to review it with Mrs. Calitro to make sure it's okay. I could still put that on for the 8th. It's for 53 Lake Avenue Extension, the Hyatt building, a new restaurant.
Why not, right?
Yeah, as long as Sharon says it's complete. I just haven't
Right.
had a chance to go over it with her.
All right. Yeah.
So we
good.
might do that on the 8th too, if it works.
All right. So we got a question mark on one. Okay. Any other matters? Any other matters? Any other matters? Anybody want to make a motion at 10:32? Is it 10:32?
Yes.
10:32 to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Who was that?
Joe
Commissioner
Rea.
Mr. Rea makes a motion to adjourn, second by Commissioner Coelho. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed at 10:32, and we will see everybody on August 8th. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night,
Good night, Greg.
everybody.